Right away.
Sweat.
Perfect. Hey guys, how's it going? Okay, good. We're live. What's up, guys? Okay, I gotta pause this. Hey, Julie, what's up? So I'm here with Kelly Day, and we're gonna be doing a stream. We don't really have, I guess, anything directly planned. I got some questions, I guess, I want to ask, but yeah, we're just gonna be chilling. And you were talking about before how you had some. You want to talk about some of your hate comments? Like your hateful comments that you've had?
We can. It's up to you. I always just find it so fun when people read like their hate mail and that kind of thing. I find it so fascinating because people are amazing. So I just always thought to myself, because you just say whatever the hell you want, and I'm like, I get hate. How much hate does AJ get? So I would love to hear some of your stories.
Surprisingly, I don't get like that much hate, to be honest. Like, I don't know. I don't get too many hateful comments. Like, that's the thing. Like, I hear a lot of people, they get like a lot of hateful comments. I like 99% of them are pretty good. So I don't know. It's like somehow, and then I get the occasional one or something, but it's usually just so like, I don't know. Like, it's not like a good argument or poorly worded or whatever. So it's just, I just brush it off completely.
Oh yeah, so they're usually pretty sad. Like I find, yeah, it's a good ratio. I generally only have, a couple, but man, when people are pretty insane. Like people are pretty rank. So yeah, I'm always curious because what I find is ironically, and this is so not a gender thing, but I do think maybe sometimes people are just a little more like, hey, she's not going to dish it back out. So they just say whatever the fuck they want. Right. So I'm not entirely sure, but yeah, it's I just thought maybe there'd be some fun stories, but it's all good. I mean, I just have the usual, like, I've been called the usual. There's nothing new, right?
I'll get into it with them usually, and I'll go into like a huge argument or so. Like I used to do that a lot more, but then like, now I'm kind of like, fuck it. Unless it's like really dumb or depending on who it is, then I'm going to like write it out or something. But generally what I get is like, maybe they'll leave it and then I'll like argue back, and then they'll just follow my channel and give me downvotes for like the rest of my life or something. So it's like,
that's commitment.
Every video I have at least like 2 downvotes, and then they stay around for months and then they go away. Then somebody new, I alienate somebody new, and then they come and downvote. So it's like BM the other day. I think I permanently banned him from my chat. I don't know.
He's permanently done now. He's out.
Well, I was just like, I'm going to hide you from my channel because you're starting to bother me. And it's like, I don't have an issue with people criticizing me or whatever. But when it's just like constantly annoying stuff and like, ha, 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 you're wrong, you're stupid, and then they're just, it's like, okay, like, like I used to have this, one of the only people I banned from my channel too was just every comment they would leave on my channel was just really snooty, and it was like, oh, you almost got it right this time, but blah blah blah. And it's like, okay, like I just can't stand you. Like I don't care if you call me terrible names and all that, but if you're just like leaving snooty comments all the time, then I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna ban you, right?
That's enough. Like you said, this is my house. Get out of here. There's someone in the comments like, who's BM? And it's funny because when I first saw it, like I had a year of nursing school. So like my first thought when you're learning how to write in, writing up your charts and everything is like all these little acronyms. And of course, BM is bowel movement. So I was like, it's bowel movement, right? It's like everybody started calling him bowel movement. He was mad at me.
Oh, right. That's right. the bowel movement. But he's probably watching right now.
Sorry, BM. I'm sure you're good stuff. I'm sure you're a good dude.
Probably downvoted me, I'm assuming.
He might come downvote the rest. Now he's going to come downvote the rest of my videos for the rest of time. Oh, well.
But yeah, I want to ask you like a couple questions, though. I guess I had a few of them written out. So what exactly made you start your channel, decide you start your channel?
Well, there's the whole, walking away, leaving the left shenanigan, which was just a massive, red pill eye-opening experience. So health stuff, major transformation stuff, which I won't get into. If you guys want to learn about that, feel free to watch one of my many, long-winded videos about it. But essentially, to actually get out there and dive into this, I was just feeling so much frustration with the way things were going once I woke up. And I just didn't like ranting in my living room. And I thought, I really need to to speak up, and I didn't know how. I'm not really a techie person. It's funny you said I was a boomer. I totally am a Luddite. Like, this is not comfort zone for me at all. So this wasn't expected. Yeah, cool. Well, a lot of us are like introverts. That's what I keep hearing. But regardless, here we are. So I just felt frustrated, and it was a Steve Crowder speech. He was talking about, someone asked him, like, why bring kids into the world? And he said, essentially, in about 6 minutes, like a massive no fear speech, you know, that you have to speak out, that you can't be afraid of what people will think of you. And I had this moment of like this rush of, you know, courage. And I made this really poor, crappy quality video. It's not even up anymore because it was so pathetic, but it was the start of me, you know, speaking out. And then I did a feminist rant, and it just kind of grew from there. And then I found Rance Derrick, and he got me into the idea of doing songs. So that's why I've been starting to write like political stuff. So yeah, just really wanted to speak out and get it off my chest and do something, because I was sick of just fucking bitching about it, and stuff was falling apart, and so had to do something.
Right. No, that's awesome though. I like, yeah, I saw you come around, like, what was it, like half a year ago or a little bit more, or like
end of July. Like, my channel's been up for a year or two. It was just but I haven't done anything with it. I had a couple old crappy recordings on my cell phone that I transferred from an old YouTube account with a different name, and I did nothing. Right. So it's officially end of July. So yeah, what, 6 months now, I guess.
Right.
So.
No, you're growing pretty fast. You know, honestly, for 6 months, you know, a lot of people will have their channel for a lot longer, and yeah, you don't put out too much content. So, you know, for that, that's actually pretty good. And like, yeah, you know, Rance Derrick, I think I came across him almost a year ago or something too. And like, when I started following him when he was like really small too. And I was like, yeah, man, you're going to grow really fast. I'm like, you're going to shoot up right past me. I'm like, you're going to shoot. He's like, no, I'm like, yeah, man. I'm like, your content's good. It's well made. It's thought out, you know, it's only a matter of time before you grow. And yeah, his shit's hilarious. You know, I love watching Derrick's content. But like, how did you get introduced to my stuff? Like through him, I guess, or whatnot?
No, actually, AJ, you, I think, were one of the first, like, you know, Canadian Patriot type YouTubers that I think I even found. It was like you and Northern Patriot when he was still doing vids. And then I think maybe Old White Guy right after that. I'm not sure, but you were first, AJ. I'm pretty sure, because I remember very clearly, like, I was picking up Steve from a job because he was out in the bush, like working some forestry job for the summer. And I went to pick him up, and I was in like the parkade, and I remember hearing one of your videos. I think you were talking about the stuff with Saudi Arabia, that like whole disaster when we basically did a terrible thing over
that video is huge.
Yeah, totally. And I had made a very small one. Yeah, I made like a small one, and for me, I got 300 hits, which was huge for me at the time because I had like 10 subscribers or something.
Right.
And so it came up in my recommended, and I remember thinking, sweet, that guy's got like a cool voice to listen to. He sounds like a podcaster. And I just was listening to you ever since. Yeah, you were one of the very first people I started getting into.
Oh, no way. That's awesome. Yeah. That's surprising. That's crazy how that one Saudi video, I didn't even think anything of it when I made it. It got like 40,000 views or something like that. And I even seen it clipped again like 3 weeks ago. I was randomly going through some Twitter feed because, like, you know, I don't have a Twitter, but I can still kind of use it a little bit and, you know, still go through some feeds and whatnot. And I randomly was going through one guy. I found his Saudi Arabia thing, and I see my video, a clip of it again. And I'm like, what the fuck? And I'm like, they're still using this? Or like, see, even the Canadians hate Trudeau and his government. And they like clipped it a lot too, and like highly edited it because my voice was like super loud. I was like super high. I was like, holy crap, I sound like a fucking woman. I was like, Jesus Christ. So like, you know, he's sharing it to his thousands of fans thinking I'm like a, like, oh my God. But I'm like, whatever, it's exposure, I guess. But
I guess, right? I mean, but your first mistake here, AJ, is that there's no such thing as gender. So I don't know. I didn't know if you caught that error you made there. Just thought
I loved the Saudis there when I made that, and there's so many like, oh, we love you, we just hate your leader, and we actually love Canada, and just stay out of our affairs, you know, just stay out of our stuff. You know?
That was my first international discussion of any kind on YouTube comments. Was it was the Saudis. That was an interesting. That's funny. It's funny, and then the algorithm, right? And then there you were in my feed. So
they use my video for the propaganda in their country, literally. Like that's what they use my video for, and I was like, fuck.
Well,
Like,
you're welcome, I guess.
you know, I was like, oh well, I guess somebody got some use out of it. You know, it's fuck Trudeau. That's all I got to say at the end of the day.
Right. I mean, as long as there's that unity, that one
Right.
congruence of thought.
I'll align with the Saudis against Trudeau any day. Right. And I'll go with the people who stone women to death. No, I'm not going to. No, if they don't do that, they just like behead people. I think they do that like Pakistan or something.
I think there are, I believe Iman has spoke of some beheadings. Yeah, pretty sure.
Right. Oh yeah. Well, they behead a lot of people there.
Yeah. Yep.
And it's funny that we just overlook that and overlook like all the shit that China does and all these other people were like, oh, but Trump, oh my God, like he said he wants to put a border on the wall and stop fucking illegal aliens from crossing into the country. Oh, what a fucking monster. We can't do business with him, but China, but Saudi, but all these people. It's like, oh, well, it's like,
yeah, no problem. Like we reached the point where like literally just saying, mean things, which actually just mostly means people just speaking. Quite honestly, it's so frustrating. What's funny to me about all this was like Lindsay Shepherd was a big part of me kind of figuring out that there's no point in staying silent, because if she, that sweetheart, wonderful lefty, is like devoured by the left, then what hope is there for anybody, right? I thought I'd be safe. Oh, I'm nice, I'm kind, I'm sweet. Nope, doesn't matter. You're going to get called on your privilege anyway, so you might as well just be a bitch about it, right? Is kind of where it's at, right? And so I don't know, it's kind of funny because when you get into all this stuff, you don't realize kind of how much it's going to kind of change you and how much it's going to like turn you into someone that you end up just fighting for these different causes. And what I've really realized when it came to things like Lindsay Shepherd or any of these situations, they're more worried about like a bad word or a scary person than they are about like being killed or horrible things happening. It's all about how it sounds. It's all about how pretty our words sound. And it's absolutely ridiculous. That's part of the left, right? Oh, it sounds fluffy. It sounds nice. Therefore it's okay. Well, Trump is too brass. He said pussy once. Oh no, like that's the worst thing ever. It's just insanity. We literally are more afraid of just feeling bad or hurting a feeling than we are of like horrible human rights atrocities. It's unreal. It's upside down world. It's hard to even understand where we are, because right now, like you live in the prairies, I live in rural Saskatchewan. I've lived all over, but I've understood the rural type people the most, in my life. And really, if that just means we're all white supremacists, then if you just can't question anything, every single freaking person I've ever talked to in a garage over a beer in Saskatchewan who are snowmobiling is just the worst person ever. Our whole province, then. It's insane. Like, the labels that get thrown on you just because you don't speak like an SJW, it's, orange man bad, right? I mean,
well,
you know the drill.
I think it's because people are so detached from just reality and how things used to be and stuff, because like they like you say, they're more afraid of words and these things than they are of actually dying and stuff. But they would actually be more afraid of getting their heads cut off, like the Norwegian girls or Swede, whatever they were, and stuff, and those other Canadians being gone, if they took the threat seriously. But they're like, oh no, that's just racist propaganda from the right wing. So they're convinced by the the leftist media, their teachers or whatever, that no, everybody's the same. You're just as safe as you are over there than you are here. Terrorism is an overblown fear from the right wing. There's nothing to fear about that. Oh, there's none of that. So it's like they don't realize, I think, like honestly, like internally, what danger there is. So what's left for them to really be afraid of is it's simple words and stupid shit. Like, you see, I did a video today. There was like another fake hate crime, probably in Alberta or in Edmonton.
I just watched that actually like about an hour ago, and yeah, sorry, go on, but yeah, good video.
Yeah, no, and it's I think it's just like there's barely any even instances of racism anymore, that they have to make it up to push their narrative and be like, oh, see, it's a problem. And really, it's like half of them are fake because they have to, because there's not any real examples for them to point at to be like, see, you're all racist. But then they'll do that. But also, 1 second, I wanted to address a super chat that I got.
Yeah, please do.
Rainy Steps, $2.79. Hello, you are looking a lot better looking than AJ. Oh, thank you, man. Thank you for the donation though as well. I really appreciate it. But sorry, I just wanted to mention that donation. But go ahead, Kelly. What were you saying?
I don't even know. I was just starting to read the chat quick here while you were. I noticed that there's a MGTOW light, and I know that a few chats ago there was a MGTOW who created, I don't know, 6 profiles to troll in one of my chats. Not sure if that's the same person. Just curious.
Right.
Curious.
What was that? That one I remember that when that was happening. It just kept repeatedly one after the other. Yeah, I remember that.
It's all good. It's all good in the hood. Regardless, you said if you have another question, feel free. Although I would like to know, maybe you've talked about this before. I haven't watched all your videos. What started your channel up? What was your impetus for starting a channel?
Yeah, I think I've always wanted to kind of do some type of channel, I guess, for a long time now. Possibly, just to speak my mind, to say what my opinion about things really is. And, I think finally just one day I was like, you're always pushing things off type, and you're like, I'll wait until I get the right settings or the right mic and the right computer or the right whatever. And then you're like, you just keep putting it off. So, I just like, fuck it. I just did one on my phone about like Sargon of Akkad or something, and a debate that he had with this Destiny guy. And then, that got like 1,000 views right away. And I was like, holy shit, I'm like, that's crazy, and when you first start making YouTube videos, right, like a couple hundred to you is like, whoa, like that's a lot, and then progressively, it becomes less in your mind. But yeah, it was kind of more just, I want to say my opinion. And I thought that in a lot of the content that I was watching, they're like they always kind of had the same idea that, like when I was watching kind of Sargon and these types of people and whatnot. And they always had the idea that like, the government is necessary and all this stuff. And I always kind of thought like, that was wrong. And, I never would hear, sometimes I'd hear like the whole reason I interjected on the debate with Sargon and Destiny was because he was arguing a point with Destiny. And I thought his argument was really weak, and that he could have made a much better argument for why like Black people in America had a higher single mother rate, right? Because he was using, I forget what he was using. It was like, he was just saying it was poverty or something, right? And I was like, no, it's welfare. It was the introduction of the government and welfare that did that. So, a lot of my videos initially, and I try to keep a bent is that, let people know that a lot of the times it is the government that's the problem. And sometimes people blame each other, or they blame a certain group for this or that. And sometimes they're somewhat to blame, but often more than not, it's like the incentives that were put in place by the government that initially created these situations that we have now a lot of the time. So that I think when people realize that, will be a lot less hatred going around for each other, because they're not really blaming, the immigrants coming in and taking everything. Blame the government that is opening the door and giving incentives for people to take advantage of it, right? Because people, fuck those immigrants and taking our shit, right? And I can understand why they feel that, but I think it's always good to remember that, and remember what is the true cause of our problems, and that's just my opinion of what's true. Maybe I'm wrong, maybe it's something else, but that's my perspective, right?
Yeah, well, that's interesting, because with the left, that's what I find is so fascinating. They're so willing to throw their fellow, Canadians, or in the States, it started with the Trump stuff, of course, throwing their fellow Americans under the bus. You're just stupid. You're just a deplorable. And it happens constantly. You see it online. It's just pathetic. Willing to throw people that are more like you than they're not like you, just regular everyday people in your country. You assume they're the enemy. You assume they're something bad, something vile, and you'll fight with them, but you'll never blame the government, and you'll blame one side, one team, but never just understand that overall government control is bad. And when you have too much government control, it doesn't matter what side of the bloody coin you're on, you're going to have issues. And it's that's the part that just still baffles me, AJ, is I understand there's brainwashing and all of that. Okay, the left just wants everything to be beautiful and no one to ever have hurt feelings again. That's great. Like, I'm still a bleeding heart. I get it. But like, it's this utopian idea that doesn't make sense. But I can still at least understand that people would rather believe it's possible than just accept the reality that some people suck and that people take advantage of systems. What I can't understand, what I can't wrap my head around, is this blind faith in the government, because most leftists hate establishment. They hate big corporations. They hate all that shit, that power dynamic stuff, but they will just throw themselves into the government's arms and be like, take care of me. I believe in you. And it's just insane. They just trust them. I don't get it. That's the part that I can't relate at all, because I don't think I even really believed that when I was more left leaning, and I was never like far left, right? Looking at that now, I think, wow, that's not the liberalism that I thought that I knew, right?
Right. Yeah, it's hard to kind of understand the paradox of how. That's why, to me, like, they just don't make sense. Like, people like what is it called, anarcho-communism, and communism in itself. Just that's why the ideology itself just doesn't make sense, because like, how are you supposed to redistribute wealth? How are you supposed to make everything equal and even without a government? Because their whole idea is like, anarcho-communism. That's practically just communism, is not to have a government, to have things run by communes and all this stuff, right? But it's like that's a good idea, but in practice it doesn't make any sense. Like, you're not going to actually, we see how communism always ends up, right? It's a huge government who says they're going to make everything equal, but they end up like taking everything and everybody's equally poor. So yeah, I guess they're kind of telling the truth, but not exactly, right? Well,
a version of the truth, you could say. Yeah.
Right. Let me just check out the chat here for a second. So guys, if you got any questions too, just put AJ Elicits in the chat with my name, and I'll be able to see it there as well. But let me check out one more of these questions here. So I'm sure you've probably covered this already, but have you lost any friends since you've started doing this?
Yeah, lost a few friends, some vocally, obviously so, that have told me legitimately that they just are disgusted with my decision, especially to be with PPC. It's funny with the PPC, you get a lot of hate from CPCers, like conservatives, but you get hate, but from a different angle for a different reason. So you're hated for many reasons by many people. It's very fun.
I know, right?
Yeah, you understand. So anyway, so yes, I lost because of course Maxime is, white supremacist and bigot and all these things that the CBC tells the good people to believe. So yeah, I've lost a friend over that quite harshly. Friend of about 5 years. I have a friend who's accepting it, and NDP friend, actually, of all things, who's actually was willing to watch my Rebel video. And so she's trying to get there, but I sense the pulling away. And there's always just the friends where you can tell, and some family members, they just don't kind of talk to me anymore, and they just sort of disappeared. So yeah, absolutely. I suspect there will be more and more the bigger the channel gets. Like, it's just a matter of time, right? So it is what it is. Like, it's ridiculous. But on the plus side, I have made fantastic new friends and amazing people across this country that I've been connecting with. And it's like meeting people that actually get it, and you can have that sense of like solidarity is pretty fantastic. So whatever, it is what it is. At least I can be myself. If you're going to dump me over that, then I don't know how close we were in the first place, right? Like, if you don't know my heart after how many years, I guess we weren't really that close,
Right. And it's crazy because it's like, how brainwashed are people for them to, and you're saying one of your friends is accepting it. Like, even that's hilarious to me. It's like how you have to I know people that are socialists and shit, and you're like, or practically socialist. And I'm not like, oh, I'm accepting it. It's like, yeah, I just think you're retarded and stupid. But other than that, I don't have to like accept it and like, oh, I'll work through it and I'll go home and I'll think about being your friend or something. You're like, what? What am I really saying that is so bad? What am I saying that is causing you so much distress? I don't want to increase immigration and a smaller government. I got to think about this. It's like, really,
Oh, that's terrifying.
Put it in simple terms for people. I put it in extremely simple terms, especially for the people saying that. Because like, I'll be like, what do you have to think about? Really, what do you have to fucking think about? Because you're so brainwashed that, you know, you think it's bad or something from the TV you watched or whatever. So it's like, you know, think about that. You know, that could be like a way to wake people up in a sense. You know, just ask them like, why? Like, think about this, man. Like, what am I really saying, and what is really wrong about it for you to do? Because if you go through what you really believe, you know what I mean? Does it sound that bad? No, it's not.
Yeah,
it's not bad.
That's just it. If you just talk about it, if you just give someone a bloody chance, that's why I put Brad Trost on the channel, because I heard him speak at the Rebel, and he was an amazing storyteller. And I thought, okay, he'd be someone I'd like to talk to. And he's someone that people hate because he has a couple of opinions that people don't like. So they give him hit pieces. No one gives him a chance to say, hey, here's the logical, reasonable reason that I have this opinion. And he's just a normal person. Oh, imagine that. We're all just normal bloody people. I find it hilarious that I'm getting called like these ridiculous terms like white supremacist and Nazi. I had a conversation with some friends of mine in town here that don't follow politics, and we were all kind of having, like, I don't have a lot of girl friends. I never really have, to be honest. I noticed Julie in the chat mentioned something about having better friends now than before. And by the way, Julie is so awesome. She's totally one of those wonderful gals that I've met. But it's true that some women are difficult. Women can be difficult to be friends with. So I've typically had easier friendships with men because there's less bullshit, right? There's less drama. And I don't mean to like bash my own gender, but it's just something that I've noticed. So yeah. I don't even know. Sorry, I didn't mean to kind of interrupt you there. It's just
no, not a problem.
Fair enough. So yeah, I noticed that she had kind of mentioned the woman's side of this. I don't even actually know where I was going with this now because I got distracted by my own thought. Where are we going with this, AJ?
Oh, well, I think you're talking about women and how it's harder to talk to them about some of these issues, and you lost some.
Oh yes, so sorry. So these gals that I was chatting with, I just explained that, you know, I do conservative commentary and that the comments are just insane, and they were like, what do you mean? What kind of comments? Did they just thought people were being rude, maybe insulting looks or something? And I was explaining I've been called a Nazi, I've been called a white supremacist, I've been called, you know, all these insane things. And they were mortified. They're like, people call each other Nazis? I'm like, oh yeah, that's like a common thing in politics. And they couldn't fathom it because in normal day-to-day life, in a store or wherever people work, they don't do that. This isn't normal behavior. It's absolutely out of control. And why do people believe this shit? Well, they're exceedingly brainwashed. And I don't know the answer as to why they don't dig deeper, except that it's uncomfortable. It's my best advice if anybody out there wants to try to understand where leftists are coming from. Like my channel, I try to like follow head, heart, and gut. You have to balance instinct and emotion and rational thinking. You have to find a balance, or you tend to make crap decisions. And I feel like leftists in general, in a worldview way, just so they don't have that balance. It's the heart, it's the heart, it's the heart. And they want so badly to just feel good and have others feel good that the rest of it goes out the window. And then they end up feeling worse and hurting people more because their policies are garbage. That's sort of my thought. So if you can at least understand that's where they're coming from, it might help you to try to rationalize, because some people can be rationalized with, but it takes a lot. And that's why Crowder and these different people, for me, upfront, honest, not mean, not cold, but honest. You can't argue with it, right? It's logic, and you do have to just be really firm. So I know that's why I appreciate your show, AJ, because you just say what you think, and it doesn't matter if I always agree with you. I respect that. Like, that free speech absolutism is awesome. I love that you just say what you think. There's no one that does that, and that's where we were supposed to have this live stream with Saint Jean d'Arc, I guess would be. Did I pronounce that remotely right, or did I butcher that French? We were supposed to be like a political correct discussion, but she couldn't join us, so we'll have to do that one of these days. Hey.
Oh yeah, we'll do it again for sure. Like when she has time, definitely. But yeah, no, like it's I try to do that as much as possible. I don't ever want to censor myself or any way, or say something that's not on my mind, just not to say it because it could make me look bad or something, right? And it's like, you know, I'm gonna say what I see, you know, and just say what I see. And that's pretty much it. And you know, I think I'm calling it out fairly accurately most of the time anyways. So I'm like, I don't think I'm wrong about a lot of it anyway. So I'm like, I'm gonna stand firm on what I believe. And like, yes, I could be wrong, and I'm open to the fact of being wrong and learning. You have to be, because, you know, I don't want to be completely stubborn, but I think it's good to be stubborn to an extent, because if you're just so easily pushed over, I think people don't really respect that either. And also, you know, that could work against you. And then, like, you know, sometimes you are right, and you don't want to just because the rest of the crowd is saying you're this, you're that, you're wrong. Sometimes it's like, no, I'm right. I know I'm right. I'm not going to fucking, just because you say what I'm saying is bigoted or racist, that's not going to stop me from saying anything, because truthfully, I'm looking down the road in the future, and it's going to be harder and worse to say things in the future than it is currently right now, because, you know, 10 years ago it was harder to say things than it was 20 years before that. 20 years before that, it was harder to say things. You know, it's just going to get progressively harder until something is said. So it's like, yeah, I might get fucked over. Maybe my job will be in jeopardy or something like that, and whatnot. But, you know, I have faith in myself. I think that I'll do okay, even if that were to happen. I think I'll survive. I was never rich to begin with, so it's not like I need money, and I'm not like, oh, what am I gonna do with my house? I'm gonna lose all my shit. I'm like, whatever. I'm poor before, I'll be poor again.
Yeah, it's not a hard transition.
You know,
yes.
You know, I guess it's like I don't have a lot to lose. Like, I guess, you know, you do have a lot to lose. Sometimes you don't realize how much you do have to lose, but you know, I think it's worth it to at least speak honestly. You know, at the very fucking least, you know, can we at least do that? And that's one of the tests of a free society. You know, it's like, if we can't speak honestly, then we don't have freedom. We don't live in a free society. And that's what I really don't like. And I see people being swayed into believing that freedom of speech, all this stuff is like an antiquated idea. It's like, well, that's for Nazis who like to use it to further their narrative. And that's, you know, the media always frames it like that. Like, oh, it's, you know, these free speech radicalists or something. It's like, what?
Yeah, free speech radicalists. Doesn't even make sense. Yeah, it's ridiculous. That's not a real thing, because, again, this is another good example of, you know, people that have more that mindset, often more like left-leaning people. And I mean, I hate dividing people into groups, but when it comes to just how you see the world, there is sort of just there is a divide, right? And they often feel that those hurt feelings are more scary, more negative than the potential after effects of tyranny and crushing speech, crushing free speech. You have to let people talk, first of all, or they're gonna go nuts. Like we were talking about Rance Derrick earlier. I think it's a good opportunity to tout his cause right now. He had a video put up. I don't know, did you watch that recent one, AJ, or did you get to see it? They pulled it.
I saw it actually, and
like, he pushes the line. He pushes the line, but whatever. That's the job of a comedian. I made a joke to him after. I said, a good comedian makes you think, I'm going to hell for laughing for that. You're laughing at that, right? That's you have to be able to push the line. You have to take the pressure off. You have to let the steam out. You start censoring comedians. You start censoring this shit because one person complained, and it was one person. He showed me the comment, and then they were like some kind of activist out in Quebec, and it's just, they pulled it because they didn't want to offend someone of trans identity, and that's where we're at now. That's such a dangerous thing. You're pushing people to the point where even gentle, kind souls are getting frustrated. You can't push people like that. They have to be able to speak, or they're going to get angry and stupid and violent. And they're wondering why people are getting more and more angry. Well, you stifle them. You make them feel like they're shamed by society for having any opinions. And it's madness, man. Like there's a reason people are leaving the left. And I think there's a walkway movement. I've been asked to help with the walkway movement in Canada that's connected, and it's going to be hopefully big, because this stuff is ridiculous. They play on people's hearts and emotions, and it makes me so sick and so angry.
Yeah, I had Brandon Straka message me on Twitter, email or something a while ago he's like, because I made a video about Kenneth Owens or something, how he was.
I remember that whole thing.
Something, and he's like, "Oh, thank you for standing up for me," and blah blah. But I never ended up getting back to him or something. So I'm like, oh well.
That's cool. He's a busy guy. He's hard to get in touch with.
Right.
Yeah, I remember that whole thing on like Twitter, and she was. I know you've had opinions on Candace Owens for a while, I kind of am with you on that one, but that's a whole nother story. So
yeah, I don't trust her because she's just, you know, it's like she's not honest. Like this is just as money. You know how she's fucking making money. It's no, and I don't like her. It's like,
fair enough.
You know, I can understand why, you know, some people do, and I can understand people coming not from where I know her from and being like, I like what she says, and you know what I mean? Like, I completely understand. But I knew her from kind of like a backstory and her whole social autopsy thing where she had like a doxing site and she was going to dox all these kids. And it's like, you know, it's like 2 years ago, you're a massive SJW, and that market was clearly saturated with a bunch of people. So you're like, you know what I can do to make a lot of money is be black and a conservative and say all of the fucking things that they know they want to hear black people say. And fucking conservatives, they just buy that shit up. And it's like, a lot of it is bad, and it's not even good rhetoric to be using. Like, get off the Democratic plantation and stuff. And you're like, oh, please stop using this. Please stop using this. Like, they black people,
I know,
hate it.
Overwork, like people that are like, well, this is my side and my team. Yeah, and yet it's crap. It's crappy narrative. It's like, just because she's on your team doesn't mean she's helping your side right now. Just because she's saying some good things doesn't mean you have to you don't have to like everybody that's on your political leanings. That's ridiculous, right?
My advice to Republicans, to conservatives, is do not pander to people of color like that, because they're not stupid. They see through that. Okay, first of all, a lot of them know Candace Owens is a fucking grifter. They all know that, and it's like they already think liberals and shit are racist and just as racist as the right wing, but they don't care. They're gonna vote for them anyways because they have the same policies that they want a lot of the time. So they like, look at that northern guy with the black face. Like, this is the funniest thing I've ever seen in my life. Like, first he did the baby thing, right, and then the black face, and then the guy that was going to replace him was accused of sexual assault. And then the guy that was going to replace him, the attorney general, came out. He had blackface on too. So it's like blackface, sexual assault, blackface. They're all Democrats, and people and Republicans and stuff are like, oh, see, look at the Democrats are the real racist. No, they just look at that and they think, oh, they're just as racist as you are. They already think that about it. So it's like, I hate all this pandering. It does the opposite. The best thing to do is just give out your platform, say what you believe, and stop pandering to people. Stop pandering to different fucking groups of people and saying like, Trump is creating all these jobs for blacks and Hispanics and stuff. And it's like, please stop this fucking shit, man. That's the one thing I hate about conservatives and how they try to like win over black people and people of color on their side. It's like, this is not gonna work.
No, that it's identity politics on the other side. It's not better, right? It's just the same garbage, just with a different angle, right?
Yeah, and they do it a lot worse, and they don't offer as much. Like, it's like, it's not good. And then Candace Owens she furthers that, and you know, she's not bringing black people over to the Republican Party. Nobody's looking at her and being like, oh, Blexit, which she stole from somebody else, like literally ripped it off from somebody else.
There wasn't it. I can't remember. There was a whole that was a controversy on Twitter for a day, like everything that doesn't matter. But I mean, I don't much care. But I remember, wasn't it someone's hat, or there was an artist, or someone had drawn it, or I don't remember. There was a whole thing.
No, there was like a whole,
so ridiculous.
There was a whole community a whole thing that had that, a whole black movement thing that was up for like more than a year or something.
Yeah, like the Blexit thing. Yeah, so she essentially kind of took it and then didn't admit it or something. And then she called out Brandon Straka for the walk away movement. And
that was like, she stole so many different things. Like, she stole the name, and then she stole the idea of Blexit, you know, making videos of how you're leaving the party from Brandon Straka, like that, the whole kind of theme of making a video saying I'm leaving, you know, it's like, but she did that for Black people or whatever. So that, like, she copied the idea there, but took the name from other people. It's like she just steals. Well, she's so unoriginal and cringy and shit, and I just can't stand her, and it bothers me that she keeps getting promoted.
Fair enough. Because she's still I can't remember what her organization was. She's her and Charlie Kirk, who I'm sure are in love with each other, but I can't verify that with proof. But anyway,
it's, you know, it's like Laura Loomer or something, right? It's she's okay, but you know, it's just some people you got to be careful, because the only reason they seem to be doing stuff is to just purely, you know, monetary and for attention and stuff, right? So
fame and fortune, right? Like, they're just human beings. People that suck on all sides. We have to remember that.
Right, you know, and exactly, and just be careful. Just because she's you know, Black and saying the right things, people, like, you'll see, especially among conservatives and stuff, if you're like a person of color and you start saying like the right stuff in conservative YouTube or whatever, you'll probably like explode pretty fast. You know what I mean? A lot of people know that, right? A lot of people understand that. So you got to be careful. There's obviously legitimate people, but there are some people that are not, which is just like anybody else in general, though, right? You know, so
pretty much, yeah. That's why I prefer dogs and cats most days.
Oh yeah. So how many animals do you have, by the way?
Okay, so I have 2 dogs. I have a pug, an old man pug named Pedro. I have a border collie cocker spaniel cross named Izzy. I have a rescue cat from the summer. Her name is Georgia, and then we have a Mexican fire-leg tarantula as well. So.
Oh my God.
Yeah. That one wasn't my decision. That was one that I learned to love her. I had to learn to love her because she came with the man. So.
Oh really? Yeah, I'm not a fan of insects or lizards. I'll stick to cuddly animals, dogs and cats and stuff, right? I don't know. I just can't relate to like snakes or you know, lizards or any type of thing like that.
Yeah, you hate lizards. That's right too.
Yeah, well, you can't read them, right? Like, it's like with a cat, a dog, I'm like, oh, it's gonna attack me, you know, because it's like getting its fit, like, you know it's getting ready to
the hackles up, or you know, there's like that low growl the cat will get, you know, that kind of thing. But
a snake, they're just out of nowhere, and then you just get attacked. Or like, you know, a lizard, they're just there, and then they jump on your face. Or like a bug, they're just jump on your face out of nowhere. You're not giving any warning.
Yeah, no, fair enough. I used to be a total arachnophobe actually for like years and years, and then finally I lived on Vancouver Island for a while, and that was during my kind of lefty phase. Kind of have to fit in out there, and the freaking spiders out there, man, are just massive. Not just spiders, all of the bugs. There were, since we're on this weird topic, why not? Might as well lighten it up from politics for a bit. There were moths, I remember, like the size of my hand, like this, and the slugs were like as long as my foot. They were just these Jurassic massive insects, and these wolf spiders that were so big and hairy and terrifying in the garden. And so you just had to accept, like, I lived in a cabin, and so it's kind of in the forest. So I was on their turf, and I just had to accept them. So I learned to become Zen, to become one with the spider.
Right. So you said you've lived in a lot of different places and stuff around Canada, or around the world?
No, just around Canada. Just provincially wise, I've lived in Ontario, of course, a few different places, quite a number of places in Saskatchewan. Then I've also lived in a couple places in BC. So.
Oh yeah, what was your favorite place? Would you say, like?
Oh, that depends. See, Canada is so bloody beautiful, and I'll relate it into one of the questions from way back in the chat. I don't remember who asked about our thoughts on, I'll let you dive into that after, but our thoughts on like weather separation and whatnot is a good idea. But Canada has so many beautiful places, so I can't really knock any place in particular. Ontario never felt like home, but it was really far away, and I was going through my own stuff and maybe wasn't in great company. That was part of it too. But to me, Saskatchewan is ultimately where I came back to, because it's hardy and it's home and my family is here. But I miss the island in many ways too. I don't love the politics and some of the bullshit that I don't necessarily align with, but it was pretty cool place. If you're a nature buff, if you like to hike, you can pretty much hike year round, you know, walk around barefoot without freezing your feet off. Good weather, relaxed atmosphere, great food, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I do miss elements of BC. I love the mountains. So one day I will probably end up in northern BC is the goal. But for now, Saskatchewan is home, and it's cold and freaking rough sometimes, but
your football team sucks.
Yeah, well, I'm not really a football fan, so you can leave all your riders slinging for someone else there. AJ.
Yeah, I don't watch it either. I just like to say that to anybody who's from Saskatchewan. I'm just like, yeah, the Bombers will kick your ass.
There is some freaking animosity between Bombers.
There's so much animosity.
I know people that have been in like fights where beer bowls were smashed and faces were cut, and it's like, oh, shit, you guys take it easy.
They're the most hated like teams of each other because like we always lose to them anyways, but like a lot of the time, like when I did pay more attention, but like, yeah, you know, there's a rivalry between the two teams for sure. But
yeah,
no, fuck you, Richard.
What's that? Oh, what did Richard say?
He said it's Saskatchewan rule.
See, he knows. Richard knows. Oh, and to Gator, just so Gator knows, I don't think there's any serial killers behind my window. If anything, people doing meth. That sometimes happens outside the house. But other than that, just kidding. Not like right outside my house. I'm joking. Usually in the back alley, if that's the case.
Oh, right.
He mentioned something about looking like he's creeped out by my... I just caught that he was creeped out by my curtain and said that he thought like Michael or something might come out of it. And now that's not very fucking comforting. Just like...
Yeah, I saw Julie say something about somebody opening or shadow behind in my door or something as well. I was like, I hope I don't see a shadow in his door or something. I'm like,
you hear a creak.
People's minds are going insane.
Don't read the chat. Don't let the chat.
I know. They're gonna make me scared at one point. I know. I'm gonna be like, what?
And you got the black cat too. It doesn't help.
Yeah, no, black cat. Oh, he's sleeping right now, though.
I thought mine was in there, but I see there's no asshole activities going on, so my cat must not be in the room because she'd be doing something ridiculous right now.
You don't know how bad he is. Like every time I'm like about to make a video or something, it's like then he wakes up, like he hears me move stuff to get ready for it, and then he just makes his way into my room. Meow, and he jumps up, he walks in front, like, you know how many videos he's fucked up for me where I'm like 10 minutes in, then all of a sudden he jumps up on my back thing and like he's just right on my chair. And I'm like, oh, Chupa, you fucking asshole. And then like, oh yeah, just continuously. But if I can get him to like, but then I'll have like the spray bottle, and then sometimes some videos I'll be making it, you don't know it, but my left hand is below me spraying my cat to keep him away from
behind the scenes of Elicits.
It's behind the scenes. It's below me, and I'm spraying him in the face because he's like, and I hear like meow, and I'm like, you bastard, you have to, you know, but like I have to do that.
Well, like, you can't train them, right? And it's so frustrating because Georgia, she's pretty awesome. She's a pretty amazing cat, but she was a street cat. So when I got her from the SPCA, she doesn't like other cats, but she loves the dog. So when you can hear her sometimes outside in the alley because she has to go out and hunt. She has to be able to kill stuff. I call her like my Dexter because she has that urge to kill. She's so sweet and so wonderful, but she's just got the predisposition and she's a bit evil. So as sweet as she is, she's a killer. And now that she can't go outside because it's been so cold and she doesn't want to go out. And so the other day she went into the basement and all I could hear this echoing in the cement basement is, she just wailing. She was like venting and crying. I just want to go outside. She's cooped up. She's running all over the house. She's just insane. She's a spaz. Cats are ridiculous. I haven't had an indoor cat in my whole life. I've always had outdoor cats or just looked after people's cats. So I'm not used to this. Like, that's a whole different ballgame than dogs. Holy cow.
Yeah. Like, you know, I grew up in the country too. And like my dog was an outdoor dog, like all year round and stuff. Like he never went in the house. But yeah, when I moved to the city, you know, and stuff, and lived in apartments and whatnot. And I had one cat in an apartment when I was a little bit younger, and my brother opened the window without the screen, and it got out and it never came back. And I was like, after that, I was like, oh, I'm never leaving this cat out here. I'm not letting him go outside or something, you know. But like, I don't want to give him all those extra shots, and in the city, I don't want to get run over by some fucking car or something. Like, I'm just like, you'll just stay in. Like,
yeah, fair enough.
They're okay inside, you know. They're not like, if I had a dog, I wouldn't do that. You have to bring them out and shit. But you know, with the cat, they're pretty good. As long as they got enough space to kind of run around and stuff.
I was just going to say, worst thing about cats is cleaning the litter. And then I noticed that Steve is in the chat. He's like, the worst thing about cats cleaning the cat litter. He says, even though I clean the cat litter.
Oh, right.
Which was my choice. To be fair, I just sort of got the cat while he was away for work and sort of didn't ask permission. So I sort of promised that I would, like the kid, like, I'll take care of it. I promise.
Yeah. Well, you know, that's what happens. Like, my cat didn't even initially want it, but my brother got it for me, and then I just ended up taking care of it, and it liked me a lot better. You talk about,
like the one that you said isn't as responsible, perhaps?
I got 3 older brothers. Like, one of them passed away or something a few years ago.
I remember you mentioning that.
I got my oldest brother. He's like he was kind of in and out of prison and stuff here and there because he like robbed I don't know, a couple 7-Elevens or something. Yeah, I don't know. He's all fucked up on something. And then that one's the one I was messed up. Then my other brother, you know, he's just an asshole, right? Just an asshole. Generally, he's not as fucked up. He's got a job. He works and stuff, but yeah,
a working asshole. Okay, fair enough. Yeah, people at work can also be assholes. I've learned that.
Right, you know. But yeah, I work with him too, also. So we're both roofers.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
And
you were in construction or something. I couldn't remember what you said. You were a roofer then.
A roofer, yeah.
Yeah, nice, good old dangerous job.
Yeah, you know, it's got its dangers for sure, but it's, you know, it pays decent. Mm-hmm. And you know, it's got its perks, I guess. You're outside.
Yes, exactly. You're not sitting at a desk.
Sometimes that's good. Sometimes that's bad. You know, it depends. When it's like minus 35, then I'm like, but if you're dressed warm enough, it's okay. But
that's what long johns are for, everyone.
Yeah. But what do you do exactly again? I forget. I work
in the natural health industry. So I work in every other way of the sense, you know, I heard someone saying she's got a funky studio. People are like, she's a liberal because she's got that Mandela on the wall. I can tell. And yes, I work in natural health. So I work at like a bulk food health supplements. I work in kind of health and beauty. So everything from toothpaste to shampoo to salt lamps to food to whatever, that kind of stuff. So yeah, I've been doing that for just about a year, but I've taken tons of training and stuff in that field because I had health issues. So I just did a lot of self research, and then now I'm finally getting to use it all for money, which is nice to do something I actually like. So yeah.
Right. So that's kind of interesting. You know, you're trying to do it for yourself, but then it ends up, you know, you can use it as a profession over time.
Exactly. And you can help people, just even family and stuff, you know, just you learn so much along the way. And I can help people because there's so much online, there's so much garbage, there are quacks out there, right? And that's what gives like natural health a bad name, is the people that aren't balanced. There's a lot of that out there, and people that claim they can cure you with something, and it's a little much. So when you've gone through the gamut, you can really help people not waste their money and not waste their time because you've done the trial and error. So yeah, it's got its advantages. You know, even being sick had its advantages. Like, it made me smarter and tougher and probably less trusting and more jaded, which is probably good, because like you were saying, being too nice can be kind of it kind of bites you in the ass, put it that way.
Yeah, you know, it's like I always want to be nice. I always try to be nice to people and, you know, be respectful and stuff. But as soon as people start walking over me and start to, you know, be an asshole to me, then it's like, well, fuck you then, right? I'm not gonna, you know, let you walk over me and let you walk all over me. But other than that, you know, I want to be nice to people and then listen to their opinions and, you know, give it, I don't know, a second or something. But But yeah, you know, it's good to at least hold firm to your opinions, and at least for a little while. And, you know, I find me sometimes, like, you know, I'll disagree with people in like an argument, and maybe I'll be stubborn and I won't change my opinion right then and there. But I don't know, later on when you think about it and you're like, oh, okay, they were right. But yeah, I have a hard time admitting when I'm wrong, like when on the spot, you know what I mean? And you're like, ah, fuck. But generally, yeah, like I think that people are too easily pushed aside sometimes, and people do respect. Like, I guess if you're stubborn for a good reason, you know?
Oh, totally. There's like righteous anger and righteous stubbornness, and it's balance, right? Like anything else. Like, it's, for me, I like hanging out with people that will encourage me and challenge me to be tougher and a little more brazen and a little more of an asshole, to be quite honest, because I'm the kind of person who will generally be too thoughtful and generally give a little too much and maybe be a pushover. So it's helpful for me to balance it out by being around people that aren't like that. And then I can possibly help like soften the edges on people that perhaps are a little more rough. So I don't know. It's all balanced to me. You can't be too nice, though. People will walk all over you, and you will give an inch and people will take a mile. So you'll really learn to like trust people less. You give people you trust them to an extent, but you never let them fully into the inner circle of trust until they've proven themselves. Now is where I'm coming from. That's right. You know, politics included, right?
So I was curious, did you say you changed your diet at one point to like more meat or something? Like, what was the whole thing about that?
Sure did. So yeah, with my condition, there's lots of different dietary recommendations. The most common from doctors is like the Mediterranean diet, which is really just, you know, olive oil and technically more fish and lean meats, chicken and lamb and all that kind of stuff, and lots of veggies. But I don't really do a lot of fish and stuff. That diet never did. It didn't do much for me specifically. So also a lot of people claim going vegan or vegetarian works. So I have gone vegetarian in the past. I even did vegan for like a super short time in college. It was a whole whopping month, but didn't last too long. So I've tried all these different diets, lots of different variations, and vegetarianism just made me feel like crap. And I saw a specialist in Vancouver right before I left a few years ago, and she was sort of one of the world-renowned specialists that deals with chronic fatigue, which is something I dealt with after a bunch of surgeries and my body kind of tanked on me. And she said, you know, you absolutely need to be eating an ancestral diet, which of course is also known as the, if you've ever heard about like the blood type diet. So there's like, I think O-positive diet is mostly meats. So it's like an ancestral high meat, high protein, high fat diet. So I've heard this from different people. I've heard it throughout the years. Who
recommended that to you again? Sorry.
First, it was my specialist. She was a hematologist and a specialist in like chronic conditions. So things like Lyme disease and fibromyalgia and all these different things that doctors don't know what to do with, and chronic fatigue syndrome, which is what I was dealing with at the time. So she gave me advice on diet. I didn't really buy into it, but I started adding back red meat. I started adding back just beef, like farm beef, and it really, really helped. And so again, I kind of got away from it after a few years. And this past year in, I guess, the spring, I started craving steak. And I haven't eaten steak in years. I couldn't digest it for a long time. I'd wake up and crave steak. I'd, you know, go to lunch and just want steak. So I started eating tons of red meat. And now I eat like 2 ounces of red meat three times a day is the most healthy I'll feel. If I don't do that, I feel like crap. So I eat not a full keto diet. I don't do like the Jordan Peterson. I don't touch anything else. I don't believe in extremism. I think balance is super important. And I think you have to really follow your own body's instincts, because veganism might work for one person, but it doesn't work for everyone. And so, red meat is huge for me. So anything from like even just game like moose or elk, as long as it's like decent quality, you know, usually Saskatchewan hunted. Beef is awesome. Right. I don't really like to eat lamb, but I can eat lamb. I don't really do pork. I don't do much chicken. So that, it's been super helpful. And then I just sort of supplement it with, I do a lot of potatoes. Like really, I eat a lot of your old school, like meat and potatoes. Right. That's my diet. And it's fantastic. It's given me so much energy and mental clarity. It's just unreal.
How about, have you tried adding like liver and eggs?
Eggs, I can't break down for some reason. Before my surgery last year, I stopped being able to deal with the proteins in eggs and possibly chicken. I'm hoping it's temporary, because as I heal,
something with your gut.
Yeah, my illness was, not to be like too open, but my illness was near like my intestines. So I have a lot of I have to be really careful with diet and stuff. Hence why I got so healthy, I guess. But eggs I can't do, but I like them a lot. So I just do kind of the other stuff. Liver, I can't bring myself to eat, but it was recommended. I was told to eat liver.
I got some. I haven't thought out. I'm gonna eat some.
You're going for it?
I'm gonna eat it because like I've been watching a lot of these carnivores and stuff, and they're like, you know, liver, eggs, and all this crap. And it's really interesting. You talk about your gut because watching a lot of these ex-vegan videos recently, and a lot of them have issues with their guts. A lot of it stems to the guts, and a lot of it has to do with some of the people say with like the grains and the stuff in people's diets and like the lectins and the grains and you know, how it can give you like this thing called like leaky gut or whatever. And it's you know, it's like we're not eating our ancestral diets anymore, and we wonder why people are getting so sick. You know, if you look at indigenous cultures, the ones that were the healthiest were the ones that had the most meat in their diet compared to other indigenous groups. And something that was similar is you're never going to find a vegan or a vegetarian indigenous group. You know, like they're all going to have primarily meat or 60% meat in their diet. Plus it was plenty in organ meats and all this other stuff. So, you know, our gut bacteria has completely changed, and it is different than what it should be, and is processing things. Maybe like, you know, it has certain, you know, I guess bacteria in it that is better at processing food or vegetable proteins as opposed to animal proteins right now. So it's like, you know, you get somehow fix your gut bacteria. But like, you know, I just find it interesting. I've been looking at a lot of these different guys like Frank Tufano. Have you ever heard of this guy?
I haven't watched a lot of, I've heard some stories, I've seen some interviews, but now I'm curious. Are there a lot of people out there like sharing their stories of why they left veganism or what?
Oh yeah, you got to look it up. You got to look up why I left veganism. And there's this guy Swervej, I can't even say his name, some Latvian guy. And then the Frank Tufano guy. And the funny thing is they just recently had like a whole back and forth argument with each other. And like one guy, Frank Tufano, had this blonde girl on saying that this guy is like, the other guy's kind of like a fraud or, you know, whatever. So there's all this like kind of like shit being flung back between two of these guys. But the Frank Tufano guy, he seems like he goes more into like the science of it, you know, and kind of more into detail. And he looks kind of funny and it's kind of weird, whatever. But he has some like good information. Like I'll put a link in the chat or something, and you can check him out. But you know, he's got I think some decent content, and talks about yeah, like different diets and what's healthy, or they go through like, you know, what's vegans. They'll be like, he's actually doing a live stream right now, but he's like, what do you call it? He'll go through videos of like what vegans eat in a day, and some people they'll have like it's crazy. You see what some of these people would eat in a day. It makes no sense. Like they eat like 50 bananas and like 30 this. It's all sugar. It's like all sugar and all this other shit.
All the carbs, right? And it depends if a good vegan will, you know, be, and soy is the other one, right? That's part of when I was trying out the whole vegan vegetarian thing. I tried different soy substitutes that are supposed to be so healthy. And even if you're getting like organic soy doesn't do well for a lot of people, and it affects your estrogen levels, right? So when you have endometriosis, you're advised to not ever have what they call phytoestrogens, which is like estrogens in plastic and everything else. And there's xenoestrogens, there's phytoestrogens, they're in foods, they're in, you know, makeup and products and all these different things. So, you know, soy doesn't work well for everybody. Soy made me feel like crap. And then, yeah, like you said, lots of carbs. If you can do it right, that's great. Some people, like, I'll never tell someone what to eat. I don't give a shit what people eat. Follow your gut, right? Most people can kind of, ultimately it's kind of what you're craving, and then try to find the healthiest way to deal with that. Because sometimes what you're craving, like for me, I was craving steaks because my body wanted to be eating more red meat. It needed those, you know, the probiotics in it. It needed all of the protein and everything else. So it's like, I don't tell people how to eat, but I don't know, veganism in general does concern me, because a lot of people do it for the fad reason or for the empathy reason instead of just, and I guess I don't get it. Vegetarianism I get more than veganism, because vegans don't like eat anything that's like looked at an animal kind of thing, right? And I find that difficult. Like, I don't feel like eating honey from the 65-year-old woman that drops it off at my house with her 3, you know, little honeycombs that she, you know, deals with in a day. Like, I don't think she's doing anything terrible to the poor bees. And I think I can feel okay about it, or getting milk or cheese. Like that part seems extreme, but whatever, to each their own. I just hate that the CBC is pushing it on us, and that like we're hearing about this like possible beef tax shit. Like you can pry the beef out of my cold dead hands, right?
Well, right, and it's kind of like almost a lie, the whole more sustainable aspect to it, because that's like one of the things that they kind of get you into the idea that you're a bad person if you're not a vegan, if you're not plant-based, you're killing all the Africans. You're going to start climate change. It's going to kill the world and blah, 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 yada, 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 yada. But, you know, where do most of these diets come from? Like some vegan guy is eating like 50 different plants, 30 different fucking fruits and nuts and all this stuff. You think all this shit grows in Canada? No, you got to like ship this shit. You got to fly it. You got to on a plane, a boat, all this stuff that has a possibility of maybe tipping over in the water and dying and all this crap. You know, they're just transporting a bunch of grain in some trains that tipped over and killed 3 people in Canada just recently. I'm not blaming that on like I guess the vegetables, but like
it's their fault. Yeah.
But you know, that's an example. It's transportation. You know, and people die, things happen, accidents happen with transportation.
Yeah,
and you know,
and it takes resources too, right, to ship things as well. You know, a lot of them are eco-friendly, but it takes resources to ship something across the ocean. You're not getting your coconut milk for your curry without it being shipped and canned, and also you're getting it from a country that you're not from, so it comes with, you know, it's possibly not something your body's used to, right? Which I find is interesting too.
Exactly. It's not in your natural environment, so why would you necessarily be adapt to it? That's not to say necessarily that you wouldn't be, because you don't want to always appeal to nature and be like, well, if it's not in your natural environment, it's not good for you. Because that's not necessarily true either. But it would lead you to believe, or you would think that things that if you evolved in a certain environment for thousands of years, and it's only recently that we started getting a lot of these like tooth decay and all these other diseases that are fairly new that indigenous cultures do not have. Like their teeth are perfect, you know. It's because they have enough minerals and stuff in their diet. It's not because they floss and stuff every day. It's because they have enough minerals and vitamins in their food to keep their bones and their teeth and their eyesight good and strong. And people are like, oh, you know, you eat carrots to get good eyesight, but that's supposed to be like a carotene. Like it's carotene that's in it. It's not vitamin A, and that's like a precursor to vitamin A. So a lot of people don't actually convert that into vitamin A. So you're eating a bunch of carrots, you're not actually getting anything out of it. That's why some people turn orange and shit when they eat too much of it, because their body's not properly converting the vitamin to get enough nutrient out of it, right? So you see some people that eat so many carrots they turn like orange or something like that.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, right. And it's you know, your body's you would only assume that humans and a lot of vitamins are only soluble with fats. You know, you can only digest them with a fat, some type of fat, you know, or like animal fat or whatever. So, you know, you would think that our diets would consist mostly of meat and stuff, but you know, there's a lot of vegans like Anarcore in my chat. He's not even a vegan either.
I don't think he's actually even a vegan. I think he just likes to be like, what are you saying? I want to say the opposite.
Oh, he's got another channel. Wait, Haram Habif has to ban. Hey, you made your faggy video about me. That's terrible. Your criticism was shit. You know, like
make an actual good video.
Nice. Yeah, I'm not gonna waste my time. You know what? I know what Anarcore is right now. He is, what do you call it? He's a bottom feeder. And he's one of these people that makes videos about YouTubers that are slightly bigger than him, right? So then they start arguments or whatever, and then you know, they can grow or whatever. So I'm like, no, I'm not gonna do that. It's like, fuck it. You know, I try to be nice to that guy, but then he's like, oh, why are you being all hostile? Because you start off like lol libertarian, and like all dismissive and condescending, and then they wonder, why are you being all hostile? Like, because you're condescending as fuck. And that's the people that get banned from my channels, the people that, well, blah 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 blah. And then I read out all these points thought out. And you know what really ticks me off is that when you write out all these points and you think it all out and you take the time to write it, and then people just ignore all of your points, don't address a single fucking one, and just go on with their argument or something. And you're like, sorry, there's cat hair all over me.
I understand.
But like me, when you argue with honesty or something. It's like, I look at somebody's argument, they write an argument to me, and I look at it, I read it, and then what I do, he wrote this thing, I quotation mark what he says, like, copy paste it, then answer below, like, I'm responding to this, what you said, then like do it again. You take that whole time, and then they just say some stupid shit that has nothing to do with what you said. And you're like, were you even listening? Did you read a single fucking word I wrote? And it's like, no, I have no time for you time wasters. You're a time waster, and you argue with people fucking honestly, or you go away and you make your shitty fucking videos that I can't even hear. So go do that shit instead of bringing you're wrong. Vegan is the people, they ate beans and rice. What do you call it? What was he saying the other time I video? The Spartans or something, not the Spartans.
Oh, I missed that one. I haven't heard his vegan comments. I've only heard his like just a lot of other anti-AJ comments. Here he's going on about testosterone or something. I don't know. I've seen it progress.
I'm timing him out from my channel forever.
300 seconds or permanent?
I'm gonna do it permanently because he's starting to frustrate me just with like his stupidity. I'll be honest, man. I don't care, man. I was nice to you for a while, but you're getting on my fucking nerves.
I tried, Enricore. I tried.
I tried. It's like a vegan. He's a vegan fucking National Socialist. Why is he a vegan? Probably because Hitler was a vegan, right?
I heard that. Yeah.
He was a vegan.
I've heard that. I have heard that. I don't know. It's vegans are generally like I think I've met two in the last couple of years that like saved my opinion from it a little bit, because I was kind of harsh on vegans because some of them are just jerks, right? And it's I agree. There's so, like you said, that condescension of like, there's nothing worse when you're gonna go bite into something and someone gives you this look like, are you gonna eat that thing that you murdered? Like murder. Yeah. All right. And you're just like, okay, come on. That's enough. just
go away. I'm just like, I'm just not gonna deal with you anymore.
Shut up. Right? Like fair enough. If he's even a vegan, I still don't know. I still think he just.
I don't think he is.
I think he likes just be a shit.
No, I don't think he is. He's just what do you call it? Those people that like to just continuously disagree.
Yes.
For whatever.
Contrarian, is that the right word?
Contrarian. And go believe your National Socialism. And I called him out a while ago. I'm like, I can guarantee you've never worked a day in your life, and all this stuff, because of the way he was talking about bosses and stuff. Because he's speaking like a socialist, how they sound, and that's why a lot of kids and younger people are socialists, because they have no life experience, and they think like all bosses are trying to take advantage of you, and they're the proletariat, and you're the bourgeoisie. Every exchange between a boss and a worker is exploitation.
Yeah.
And it's crazy, this mindset, because it's like, you don't think logically. I tried to I don't know how many times.
I watched that one. I remember that. I remember like one or two very specific ones where you and Anricore had a whole exchange, and he was in the chat and I was just watching kind of in the background, and you explained so well about small businesses and business owners and the benefits that they have in a free market of treating their employees decently, or else they'll leave. And like, I'm a big proponent of this, like capitalism saved my ass, like I was trying to rely on the government and it sucks. And then you realize the people that really need help, the government doesn't help the people that are the most over. They help everybody because they have programs that are being taken advantage of. But of course, socialist people don't want to believe that anybody will take advantage because they don't think that's possible, which is insane. Of course it is, and so on and so forth. So yeah, you get into the free market, and I have a boss who makes money, and I don't care if she makes money off me. She treats me with respect. I benefit, she benefits, she does it ethically. I don't promote stuff I don't believe in. Everybody, no one's selling out. There's no slave labor.
Right.
And at the end of the day, if she's doing well, she's worked her ass off for 35 years. Good for her. And she kicked the ass of every other business in town that couldn't cut it. And so at the end of the day, I work there, and it's great, and it's capitalism, and it's not a big deal. And I don't know where, like, yeah, there's crony capitalism and big companies and all that, obviously, but half the time that's a government issue because there's all this bullshit with regulations and lobbying, and there's dirty stuff usually going on in the background with government anyway. So it's almost always government. Like, capitalism's not perfect, but I think you've said it, like, I'll take my chances with capitalism. It's not perfect, but it's better than what happens if a socialist government takes over.
Well, right? That's the thing. Like, it's the way to reduce exploitation is to have more freedom, right? Because the more freedom you have, the more businesses you'll have, the more places you have to go to work. But, you know, we're looking at a system, like people like Anarcho or whatever, looking at a system that is heavily regulated, that is heavily influenced, that has, you know, where there's monopolies that were often set up and created by the government. And these people are looking at this and thinking this is capitalism, and they don't like it. And I can understand that perspective. I'm just pissed because he doesn't, I've explained it to him 100 fucking times in comments and this, he still doesn't get it.
You really have. I can attest to that. I've seen many a time.
Yeah, you know, and they think that is bad, and that is bad. I agree, that is bad. That's not good because they can take advantage of us because they keep importing a bunch of cheap labor that they can now pay us less money. Like, it's just basic common sense. That's why I wish people would use their fucking brains. If you got 10 people and the boss can only choose between 10, and as opposed to 1,000, you know, he has to bargain with those 10 more than 1,000. Like, it should be really simple for people to grasp this stuff, especially the way I explain or try to explain it. And make it just as simple as possible. But, like, you know, the way to reduce exploitation is to have more freedom, because you'll have more opportunity to go to different places. They won't have the opportunity to pay you nothing, because if they do, their business will be kaput, because nobody will work for them.
Of course.
Exactly. You know, it's like, oh, I'm going to set up a Burger King. I'm going to pay everybody $3 an hour. Okay, go ahead. This other store is going to pay them more money an hour, and they're going to be just fine, and they're going to be just rich, and everybody's going to be benefiting from this. But another thing that's wrong with socialists and people on the left is that they think if you don't want the government, that means you don't want to help people. That means you don't want to give to charity. That means you don't want to give money and donate some of your money to people. Well, I donate money all the time to people. It doesn't mean just because I want to reduce welfare, get rid of these things, doesn't mean I don't want to help people. I want to help people. I really do want to help people. I want to make people's lives better. And I just think the government is not a good way to do that. Right?
I agree. You know? That's what I was saying before, like, totally bang on. Yeah, I want to help people. I think I said this once in one of your comment sections, like, you know, we're not, or you said it, that I just agreed. You said something like, we're not dumb. Libertarians aren't selfish. We just know how to help people. And I feel like that was the biggest, you know, lie that I felt I was told when I was kind of more on the left side of things, is just, well, the government cares. They're going to help. They're going to help. They're going to help. Well, no, they're not. What's really going to happen is more like what Crowder kind of explained it when he first explained. There's a couple people I'm going to credit with really opening my eyes to socialism. One is Crowder and one is Julie Mora. And Crowder mentions that it's not so different than, you know, you're walking down the street and someone behind you, maybe he's got an obvious handicap or some sort of, you know, physical disability, and he obviously is poor and obviously needs help. If you turn around and give him $20 out of the goodness of your heart, that's charity. The difference between that and socialism is somebody coming up to you, smoking you over the knees and taking you down and saying, like, give that $20 to that kid. And then you hand that person the money and they take 15 of it and then maybe give like 3 cents to the kid and then some of the money to their friends. And you never really actually fucking anybody. And that's the truth. We just give it all away. And by the time the bureaucracy floats down to the bottom, the people at the bottom, and I know this, I've lived amongst poverty. I've seen the people trying the hardest to get out. They're getting screwed over so bad. And so many people are abusing the system. And because people abuse it, then the good people get screwed. And then the money just gets more messy. And then there's bureaucracy. And it's just a fucking disaster. Nobody gets help. It's such a disaster. Plus you feel like a victim. Plus you have no independence or autonomy. Who is better with no autonomy? That's yeah, like you said, it's not empowerment. That's not helping people, right? Like, so you need a welfare state when I agree. I believe in anyways, I'm not a pure libertarian because I've seen the way that people's lives can go. Yeah, there's some people that aren't going to have help. Like we had a 55-year-old mentally challenged person living with us before he passed away for a couple of years. My dad worked with them at a job he was at for a few years, and he had the mind capacity of a 5-year-old. And because he was handicapped, his dad had beat him growing up, his mom had passed away, and he had nobody. So like, yeah, they get crap all for money because the government doesn't care about those people, but they should be. Nobody, I don't think any conservative is like, screw the handicapped, screw people in wheelchairs, screw the blind. I think we're all like, hey, those people aren't getting any money because we're so busy giving so much bloody money to anybody who asks for it or has a hurt feeling, basically, right? And it's just, that's the frustrating part. The government doesn't give a shit. And they're bad, even if they care, even if a government official cares, they're usually not good enough to give the money that you would essentially give to someone privately. They'll never get that same amount when you go through all the channels. So sorry, that's a bit of a rant, but I find it that's such a frustrating argument from leftists, right? That we just don't care. No, that's not true.
And like even like welfare, like to an extent, like I think the way to get rid of it entirely, because I think it needs some need things, in my opinion, because I think, you know, just the whole premise of the government is just based off force, you know, kind of stealing other people's money, even if it's for charity for disabled people. But I mean, like I think it should be taken away in steps, right? And gradual steps. Like it would be horrible to remove welfare like that, you know? That's a terrible idea.
Now, and it would just be a disaster.
But so dependent on it. We don't have systems to take over, and we don't have things, and that's why it needs to be gradual. So you can build industries, things that would kind of replace it and replace it even better. Because what we're not also considering is that we are probably way less rich and advanced than we would be if it wasn't for a lot of government interventions and patent laws, copyrights, all like just so much. There's so many things that they've done to kind of hold back the progression, hold back wealth with the trade deals where they sold out tons of people's jobs to China and all. You know, they make us poor, they make us dependent on them, and they make us hard to see a future where we could have something to replace these things that we think, okay, we need. Because it's like, you know, I don't know. It's like I would love to get away from it entirely, because at the end of the day, it is just force. It is the government using a gun to steal money from other people for a good cause. But, you know, how much of that money are they going to keep? How much of it is really being used efficiently? Is it actually going towards the best, like not the best cause, but to the best facility?
Exactly.
Of the people the best way, you know. Just for example, you know, there's all these foster kids in Winnipeg and stuff, tons of these people, and like the CFS agency, like were notified of these 2 kids that were being assaulted by the dad and sexually abused. Like the police warned, and then they were supposed to go in there and remove them from the homes, but they never did. And so those kids were still getting like abused and had sex with and raped and stuff. Yeah. And it's just, you know, and we gave it to the Métis something Aboriginal thing. It's just like, they can't blame fucking white people for this either. So it's like, you know, it's their own group of people, one group of Aboriginal shit. And then all that still happens. And we're like, oh, well, see, the government's going to give it, we're going to reconcile with the natives. And what does that mean? Just give them fucking money. And what has that done? Nothing. It's just ruined their lives. It's made them into dependent people, and it's horrible to see, because, you know, I think the native culture is pretty good. Got some good aspects to it, and I think that the way they used to live was pretty cool, and the way they live with nature and all that stuff. And what has changed? Well, it's the government influence, and it's, you know, we get blamed for it as a whole, like, all white people, white supremacy. But at the end of the day, it's not like everybody, you know, is in control of the decisions. A lot of the times it's the government. And yes, we do give it legitimacy, so there is some blame to be had as well. But it's kind of like, you know, for those people at the time, not anybody today. I don't believe in blaming the sons for the sins of the father. You know, that's fucked up. That's bullshit. You know, no way I ever do.
Putting shame on a young generation that didn't even exist, right, when this happens. And that's really not productive, right? It's just that like resentment-based stuff that doesn't help anybody. Again, it doesn't actually help to be just angry all the time. I think it's an interesting discussion. This is probably one we could talk about for a while. And both of us live in areas where I don't know what it's like in Winnipeg, but I think we're at 43% Aboriginal and Métis population. So it's a big, big deal. And if you go to the next like riding right above us, it's probably more like 60. Like it's, you know, we're kind of in northern country, and I know Winnipeg has a high First Nations population. So it's a big issue politically, you know, right now, to kind of try to engage with that side of things. And it's such a mess, like you said, because there's so much corruption on all sides. That's what people don't want to talk about it. But I just had this confirmed by someone I spoke with PPC stuff the other day, that, you know, he's I believe 50%, so he'd be considered Métis, part European, part First Nations. And he said, you know, the amount of money that does get wasted, but not just by First Nations, by any government official, is
all governments.
Like, it's just corruption at the top, and then the community gets nothing. And then we wonder why it's not working, and the money still goes up and up and up, but yet there's no results. Well, like, the system is broken, we need to fix it, and nobody seems to want to just sit down and have the discussion and have a talk about it. And then people are more mad, and then the tensions get flared, and it's just a disaster. And like, the government's got its little foot in there, and it's doing nothing except for stirring the pot and throwing money into it and just making it more volatile, right? It's a mess, and it really sucks because there's no unity, and there's no really involvement. There's no First Nations involvement in politics, which is really unfortunate. And, you know, like you said, there's no autonomy, and people don't have that empowerment, and that is sad to see, because it is a beautiful culture. And I've been to powwows, and I've done shamanism training and things like that, and I work amongst a lot of Aboriginal people here, so I do see like all that beautiful culture, but it's so broken. The system's so broken. It's just, I don't even know where to begin. I wouldn't know where to begin. Right.
And yeah, you know, it's hard to convince people that stop giving people money will help them. But it's hard for people to wrap their brains around that aspect. It's like, just cut the money off. But like I said, a lot of people, either they're willfully ignorant, or they haven't had much life experience or something. Because if you've seen anybody in your life that is like I use my oldest brother as an example, right, in my own life and stuff, just to see like, oh, that's what happens when you know, you don't expect people to work or fucking pay for shit or whatever. You always bail them out when they complain that they need money or whatever, right? That's what happens. You know, it's just not good. And like he gets, like, I don't know, assistance from the government or something like that, and you know, he just spends a lot of that money, or sells, like, he got medication from the government. I think he was like selling that shit when he had it to make extra money, and you're like, you know, it's just say so many people taking advantage of the system. And I just think the best way to help people is to allow more people to keep more of their own money, and then say, hey, you know, it's still going to happen. We're still going to have families who feed their sons and their daughters money, and then kill themselves from it. That's always going to happen, right? Maybe not always, but it's going to happen even without the government. But it just makes it worse when you have the government able to do that as well. And we see the results of it now. We see the results, but nobody wants to look at it. They just want to increase the funding. They're like, well, we just didn't spend enough money. We didn't give them enough money. That's the problem.
Yeah, it's not the management of the funds or the actual actions behind the words. It's just the words and the funds, and everything else is just going to be hunky-dory. It's so ridiculous. Like, most of these people making these policies have never left their frickin' suburbs anyway. I lived in some pretty rank areas when I was living on the island. I've lived in rank areas in Regina. I've lived in some pretty horrible places, you know, the kind of places where when you say, oh, I lived in that house, they're like, oh, the shoot up house. And I'm like, you mean bang, bang, shoot up? And they're like, no, like shoot up. And I'm like, oh, great, that's awesome. And they said, oh, it used to be. Well, no, it still was. And you're finding needles. I've been to these places. I've lived amongst this shit. Yeah, there's a good percentage of people that have really bad lives and mental health issues, and women that have gone through abusive relationships and are trying to turn their life around. Yeah, there's those people. And then there's the people that don't give a shit and are on welfare while making money under the table as a, you know, I don't know, apartment manager is in my example, as well as lying about having a medical condition to be able to grow weed and sell weed. So like, that's a thing. Those people exist. I've lived with roommates that have a good enough job to have benefits for addictions counseling. And so when they go on their coke binge for 2 weeks, they can just get time off work paid and go to free rehab and then do it all over again because they're protected by a union. People take advantage of the fucking system. If you don't understand that and don't believe it, go live in the hood for 5 days and you'll see it and be so angry by the end of it, because I never experienced such, when talk about getting red pilled, get used and abused by enough freaking like people that are essentially just wanting your money and wanting your empathy, get used by enough losers, and you start getting mad, right? And you start to recognize that this socialism idea is based on a complete lack of understanding of human psychology and the reality that some people just don't give a damn about their lives. And if they don't give a damn, you cannot fix it for them, right? It's insanity. I think it's absolute insanity. Second rant.
Yeah, like, you know, how were you exactly, like, in the area you were living in, like, red pilled you a lot at the time, you were saying?
Totally. I would totally say like it was a latent thing. I didn't understand how it all fit in, but I knew what it felt like, right? I knew that feeling of how anti my values seeing this type of lifestyle was, because I was always such a hard worker, and no matter how sick I was always trying to get better. And that's what made this last decade so infuriating, because I'm so fucking stubborn and so dedicated, and to be stuck even with videos, like I want to make more videos, I just sometimes don't have the energy, and you know, trying to balance things, my energy, my stamina is shit, right? So it's so frustrating when you know that you have limitations and you push yourself and you work really hard, and then you know of people that are healthy and you know, have no issues. You know, that's like the only time I think there is like a privilege, is when there's a tangible measurable thing that can actually, that's why like white privilege stuff, you can't measure that, that's bullshit. But obviously someone you know that can walk has an advantage over someone.
Oh, of course.
So on, right? So it's frustrating when you see people like abusing
someone who's richer has more privilege. Go ahead.
No, totally. Yeah, like it exists, right? It's just a matter of putting everyone in a lumped, stupid bubble. That's
exactly, based on their race.
Yeah, exactly. That's where I have a problem with it. But yeah, it's amazing to see these people. It's really sick, and it's like you can. I have a lot of compassion for people. I always give everyone second and third and fourth chances, but like, use and abuse me, man, and you're done. And that shit happens, and it will red pill you, because eventually you start to have it happen enough. And it was more of a build up, so it sort of started the process. The relationship that I was in at the time was a nightmare, and that was another part of it. So it's just a process of really walking through it. But no, I wasn't officially red pilled till a little bit later. So like post Justin Trudeau. Sorry, everyone.
Right. No, so yeah, you just see how everything is just being taken advantage of, and you didn't expect that. You didn't expect to see that from people. You thought people had more honor than that, I guess. Like,
well, you just assume everyone's like you, right? You assume everyone's honest. You assume people are telling the truth. You assume when someone says something that they mean it and that they're not just trying to use you. You assume people want to get out of the hole. Like, you assume that when they're living in that trashy little batch apartment, that's a temporary stopover until things pick up. You don't assume that people would rather just stay there. And you know, I've even had psychologists that have said, you know, you can tell when you're talking to like a psychologist like a Jordan Peterson or someone that's like a super lefty, because I've heard people say, well, everybody wants to be good, and everybody can be. It's just some people have had hard lives. Yeah, okay, some people have had hard lives. But if you make shitty choices over and over again and other people are affected by it, there's a limit. Like, you still have to make choices. And when you're a good person that tries to make good choices and be a solid person with some authenticity, and you see the garbage, yeah, it's painful and it's frustrating. And when I hear of like UBI, I said to Steve today, like, if we adopt UBI and Trudeau gets in and this is the way it's going, like, I don't think I can stay here, because I think I work my ass off right now for like about $1,000 a month. And can't imagine just handing that to people, right?
Right.
It's just because it will not go well, right? I would still work because I have incentive, but other people won't. And I just think this ideology is so sick and so messed up. It's going to lead to so much more poverty. And I watch it happening, and I can't do much about it. I can't talk about it, right? But I've been in the middle of it, and that's what pisses me off, is no one understands when you're walking over needles and trying to make sure your dog doesn't step on one, and you're dealing with people ODing, and you're dealing with poverty, and you're dealing with mental health and prostitutes having fights with guys across the street. Like, when you're living in that, you see a whole different world, and you do have so much more empathy for people, because God, I saw some people with like the saddest life stories, and then it just had bad luck, right? And then there's the next person that's just crap, that's just shitty, a shitty person with a shitty heart. And it's like, those people don't need to be getting paid for by everyone's tax dollars. And they are right now. Everyone, so you're aware, there's people using your fucking tax dollars for fucking crack cocaine, and they have jobs already that are paying for it under the table. So yeah, if that doesn't make you mad, I don't know. That doesn't make you a 1%er Richie. It means that you have work ethic, right?
Right. And that's why it's such a horrible system, because especially UBI, or like, was like basic income, is that what you're talking about? Universal basic income. So especially, that's the thing, you're saying you're busting your ass to barely make $1,000 a month. So what incentive are people going to have to work, and how are people going to feel when you're working to the bone to make like money just barely above what they're going to give you with UBI? Like, that's, and you see these other people, then they're partying up, they're just living like, obviously I see this too. And it's not like, yeah, they're not rich and stuff, but some people don't need as much, in a sense, or not that they don't need as much, but it's like I don't know, they don't eat and they just drink a bunch of booze or something. And like, that's all they spend their money on.
Exactly. And that's fine. If it's their money, I don't give a shit. Like, that's where the libertarian comes out. Do what you want to do, your body. I don't care, but I don't think our tax dollars should pay for that. Right.
But it's frustrating to see people work really hard and, work really tough, and then see other people just exploiting the system. And, yeah, I grew up around a lot of people, seen a lot of people do that. And I grew up around a lot of people that were working poor people that try their best to pay taxes, try their best to stay, because they don't want to go live on the street. They don't want to ask for handouts. They want to be self-sufficient as much as possible. And some people just have no shame. They have no shame at all in themselves. They'll have their hands out a second after you give them something, and more.
Yeah,
you're like,
they take a while, man. Like, totally, it's so true. And I want to clarify, so I don't like pull on Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. I didn't grow up in the Bronx or anything. I grew up in what I would call like an average middle-class family, although my parents have admitted growing up that they'd go to the bank and pay the bills and have $50 left over for food. So we certainly weren't rich people. We grew up in an oil town, but we weren't in oil money. So I was okay growing up. My experiences were in my 20s, when I was away from my family and kind of distant from everybody. And yeah, in that kind of circumstance. But I just wanted to clarify that, because it's like, I don't want to seem like, I realized that I sort of made it sound like I grew up in that. I didn't grow up in that. I had that experience as an adult, which made it even kind of more interesting, because it made me realize how much my bad conservative parents that I ran away from for so long, how much they took care of me, and how much those conservative ethics and values actually meant my good childhood. And they wouldn't have been good parents if they had followed all of this feeling whimsical utopia shit, right?
Well, just be glad you learned it there and not in like that Togo, Africa country or something. You get like beheaded. So, at least you got your red pills there, and, not like those girls who were fed this bullshit, from the media, from the leftist, that the world is a safe place, that everybody's good, that nobody, and then they get beheaded. Right?
That was awful, man.
It's serious stuff. It's not a joke.
It's not a joke. Right?
I laugh because it's just so funny to me now, because these people are so brain dead. But like, it's not a joke. You know what I mean? It's not a joke. It's these people. That's death.
But people are like, no, don't judge. And I saw that after like the Facebook post she had put up, and like the irony of it, just because I was that person that was, oh, you trust people are good people, inherently people are good. And but granted, I wouldn't have probably gone to a majority Muslim country in height, but I mean, maybe I would have. I don't know. Like, I feel for them because no one deserves that horrible death, but it's also an interesting lesson because it does show that, you know, you really have to stop being naive, because just, it's better to be a little, it sucks to judge. It's not good to judge and be a racist. Sure, fair enough. But like, I would rather be a little wrong and a little paranoid than get my head cut off. So at the end of the day, that seems like survival and not racism. But you know, well, why are we upset or worried about Islam? I don't know, because like 500 fucking people have died in Europe since mass immigration started in 2014. So like, people are dying. So that's why I'm concerned, right? And so yeah, I'm sorry. Am I not allowed to be concerned about getting blown up? Is that no longer a real reason? I didn't think that was phobia. I thought that was rational thinking, but I guess I was wrong.
You're only allowed to be concerned about Trump hat 15-year-old kids staring at people. That's the only thing you're allowed to be concerned about.
They're terrifying. That's true.
That's
smirk.
But
that smirk. I don't know, man. That's like a KKK hat, isn't it? Same thing. I see no difference.
But if you complain about murders and terrorism, then you're just a bigot. You know, you're just a bigot because Canadians kill people too. You know, Canadians kill people and Americans kill people, and you're just a bigot. That's their you know, explanation. Even though they're you know, disproportionately more likely. It's like guys, like no, it's about averages. It's like, yeah, okay, I totally agree. Most Muslim people are probably great people. I bet you a lot of them would like let me in their home in some of these places and like let me eat or something. Right. And a lot of these other third world countries, I'm sure there's a lot of great people, great people or whatever. Right. I'm sure I know that. But, you know, it's still we got to understand our differences in societies and what's okay and what's deemed okay. And we're all at different levels of, I hate to say it, civilization, you know, because like, why would we be at the same levels of civilization and the same levels of like, you know, philosophical thinking type thing? Like, you know, like, why would all of our cultures progress at the same rates? That would be weird. If that were to happen, you would assume there would be different levels of kind of civilizations at once. So yeah, if you go to certain places, like, yeah, your rates of getting like brutally killed are going to be going up, and there's nothing wrong with saying that or pointing to that and being like, you know, having legitimate fear of not going to certain places or fearing, like, you know, I brought up the example of like, you know, like Asian people at one time always beating you up. And then, you know, you see them on the street, you're going to cross to the other end of the street because it's always the Asians that beat you up. Right. And you're just doing that for survival. And, you know, I think it's just, we shouldn't be attacked for just noticing trends.
Noticing trends. Statistical analysis is all it really is, you know. And I can't remember who said it, but it was a good bit of wisdom. They said, you know, it's not even about, I hear people say, oh, you just don't like the brown people. The brown's like, it's the most stupid thing I've ever heard. It has nothing to do with color. If anything, in the history of kind of mankind, all of our species, regardless of where you go on the planet, there was always warring tribes, warring nations, and it was usually people that were closer in closer demographics, which means that people that warred usually probably had very similar skin tones, right? They weren't warring with people across the world because they couldn't access them. It's not about warring with different skin tones. It's about warring with different ideologies. It's about warring with places that will hurt your tribe or hurt your community, and that's why people would fight. And it's like, that's the same thing here. It's like you said, it's not about color of your skin. It's about whether or not, although I know you spoke earlier about like white replacement, that's a whole different issue too. But like in general, like, yeah, it's not about the browning of anything. It's about whether or not we can all live realistically, peacefully, sustainably, right? Not just for a while. And can this work? Are we enough the same? And how can we trust when it seems like so many people are getting through the cracks? Okay, great. If only 0.01% of them are bad eggs, that's still a few people walking around that could really, really hurt someone. And when people are using things like bombs to blow up theaters and 85 people die in one hit, that's one person can kill 85 people in 1 second. It's not hard, right? And it's just, I don't know why we're being nailed for just having concerns. Like, yeah, I don't want people to die. Yeah, Marissa Shen made me sick. That whole situation made me fucking sick. And yeah, I want to see that never happen again. And why that makes me a far-right bigot, I'll never understand. But I guess we just don't care about the 13-year-old, you know, Asian girl. I guess that doesn't matter anymore. You know, as long as we're nice to, don't be mad at the Syrian community. The mainstream media told us right after that happened, you know, forget about her. Just don't judge. Just make sure you don't judge, no matter what. Forget that someone's dead. Just don't judge. Well, I'll try, but like, shut up and don't tell me how to feel, first of all, and let me grieve this poor kid's death. How does that sound? You know?
Yeah, well, you're a bigot.
Well, that's true, though. I don't actually have a say because I'm just a bigot. So you guys shouldn't even listen to me.
You actually don't care about Marissa Shen because you're just using her for your right-wing racist agenda.
My right-wing propaganda.
You don't care about that, you know. Especially since she's Asian, right? But
well, yes, of course.
But yeah, like, you know, and that's the thing. Like, I really want, I would love it if like people could live together peacefully and stuff, and I think maybe that could be possible, but it's not going to be possible. And I always go back to this. I know I sound like a broken record, but without a big government, because like that is what creates a lot of tension, you know, the whole redistribution of wealth. Because I always say people are tribalistic, because they are, you know, people are tribalistic and they associate with their groups, except for really white people. I never really did. And I still don't really associate with white people. Like, I just hard for me to do that. I don't want to be a minority just simply because I see the fucking rhetoric. I see the writing on the wall, and I don't think it's going to be very good. And I think it's okay for me to want to retain a majority in Canada. Like, oh, you said you want to retain a majority in Canada of white people. You're a fucking racist. Like, really? Really?
It's that
like
simple. Forget about your reasoning. Forget about your intelligent argument. Forget about your concerns. Forget about any of it, right? You just are this, period. End of discussion. Okay, well, thanks for telling me who I am. I appreciate it.
And I think we could potentially live a lot better together, and maybe even have multiculturalism in a peaceful state. It's probably not going to be like 30% of all these different groups all exactly living together, but like, if we didn't have the government, we wouldn't have, first of all, a lot of white people getting angry because they see their money being, you know, divvied out to the entire world that, yeah, don't look like them at all. And it's not that the fact that they don't look like them that really pisses them off, because if we were giving money to Russia or France or whatever, I'd be fucking mad too. I'd be like, why are we giving all our money to France? There's poor people here that need fucking help. You know, like, I want the money at least to stay in Canada and help Canadians. I don't want it to be stolen by a government and then redistributed to other groups of people to then create more tension.
That's even worse. Yeah.
You know, we see how the Aboriginals get treated in Canada, and a lot of people are like, you know what, I really don't like the fact that they get free education. I really don't like the fact that they get to go and fish and all these other people and get all this free shit. And people will yell at you and be like, well, you stole their land and you did this. They deserve all this stuff, but you deserve to have your money stolen from you and given to all these people and stuff. And you're like, no, I don't deserve that. I don't deserve that. Nobody deserves that. Nobody has the right to steal anything from anybody else. And that's, we just keep furthering the tension with just constant, with the government. It's always making things worse, because what does the government do? Then they go into the third world, the Middle East, create wars, send UN troops to go in there and rape a bunch of fucking people, a bunch of little kids, and then that creates even more tension, more hatred for the country that set up that thing, that sent those people there. Once again, it's the government again. And it's always that. It's the government that is bringing in immigration. They're the ones bringing in the quota of 330,000, now 450,000 people every day into areas that cannot withstand them. But because we have the whole safety welfare net, all this crap, they don't need to work right away. They can pitter and putter around for 3-4 fucking years and do nothing. Whereas we didn't have a government, we didn't have all this stuff. People would only come here if they could sustain themselves, if they could build something, if they could make wealth. Otherwise, they would go back. They would go back home because there'd be nothing supporting them. And then that would actually help keep Canada a majority again and keep it, the culture, the same, instead of what people are proposing on some aspects of the right, or not even the right, because I don't really consider National Socialists that, but they're like, you know, we need authoritarian government that's going to kick out all the brown people and then we'll have white money go to white people and to have babies and shit. That's not going to work. That's not going to work at all. It's a stupid idea. It's the stupidest shit. Go back to your socialist fucking utopia dream. Like, the only way is to let people keep more of their money, because white people make more money and more wealth than other people generally on the scale of the world, you know, without a bunch of interference from the government. You know, like, well, we have a record of doing that, right? And like, we would have more money to put in and have more of our own kids, and then there'd be less money going to other groups of people for them to have more kids, and it would start to balance out, and there would be no violence involved. Nobody would be killed, nobody would be hurt, there would be nothing, you know. But the people, they just want to, I don't know, use the government to do it forcefully, or just keep going the rate we're going and eventually be replaced. But then even when we're replaced, it's still going to come down. It's not like the system, the economy is going to go and function correctly, and it's not functioning right now. We're heading towards a collapse eventually. So it's still going to collapse with a bunch of other people here or that are going to replace us. So it's just, I really would like to try to convince as many people as possible to, like, yeah, want a small government, to try to prevent this eventual shit, because there's going to be like a lot of bloodshed. And that's what I see. That's what I see coming down the road, is there's going to be a lot of violence, a lot of bloodshed. And, you know, I don't want that. You know, people, they like to romanticize war in their brains, and they're, oh yeah, you know, that'd be great, and we'll have the guns and we'll do that. And you're like, no, like, you don't want war of any kind. You don't want people dying or for this.
Yeah, trust me, it's not a movie. It's not a movie, right? It's and like you said with small government, actually that's good that you brought that up, because I realized I never did answer that question that I said I would from a viewer like an hour ago about kind of Western separation sort of ideas. Because when it comes to small government in Canada specifically, I mean, there's the overall philosophy of small government, but here specifically, Canada is such a massive demographic, right? We're so different. Every province is so different. We already can barely deal with the three cultures that we had kind of ultimately that we started with, right? The French, the English, and the Aboriginal. We already have our own fights and our own issues within that. And then, of course, now we have multiculturalism, which has grown and grown and grown substantially. Yeah. And then we have each province and each demographic that are completely different. So we have rural versus urban. We've got Toronto versus Calgary. Right. We've got so many different types of people. You know as well as I do here in the West, in the prairies, that we're nothing like Quebec. You know, we're nothing like big city Toronto. And there's so many different personalities and demographics. And how do you govern that? Because in the West, we feel screwed over. And in the East, they don't necessarily understand why we feel screwed over. Well, we feel screwed over because A, our vote doesn't much count, and B, our policy or the policies don't generally benefit us, whether it's equalization or anything else. It's this constant feeling like the more rural areas, the smaller areas don't matter. So is separation the answer? I don't know. I don't want to be a separatist. I've been hearing about separatism since I was a kid. I would rather see what you're discussing, AJ, like a major decrease in government. And in Canada, what that means is putting a lot more power into the provinces, whether it's in healthcare. I mean, we already have education, but in general, there needs to be more ability of these premiers to do what they want to do, because they understand the needs of their province, and the needs of Saskatchewan are not the same as needs of Nova Scotia, period, end of discussion. And I think that when it comes to any other country, this can apply. You cannot govern with this huge umbrella when you can't deal with all of the various differences and demographics within that umbrella. It's too hard. Right. And then even with good intentions, it's going to screw up, let alone when you get a bunch of assholes, right?
Right, exactly. Even with, you know, people, they don't know what is the correct thing to invest in. You know, that's why you want the free market to do it, because the free market is just a bunch of individuals all making transactions that are either good or bad, and eventually the best transaction will win out. But the government, it's just like you're trying things once, hoping it works, and then you try it for 10, 20 years, and you're like, okay, that didn't work. Let's switch it to something else. Whereas, like, the free market works a lot better to find out solutions and how best to spend money. And like you said, people with great intentions, they may still waste it all, and they might really want to help Manitoba, but they don't know what Manitoba needs. And I know a lot of people, they don't want to be separatists, and there's a lot of like, oh, you fucking Quebec are separatists, and well, we got to understand though, like, the way I look at it is that Quebec probably start off as like what, mostly French, and then they're slowly like losing their culture more and more and more and more. And yeah, they're snooty assholes. I completely agree. And but I'm French too. I have a French heritage, French people that live in Quebec and all that stuff. And I understand how other cultures can destroy your culture and have a huge impact on your culture. Like my first language was French. It's the first language I learned how to speak, but I'm surrounded by English people that I speak English mostly now. I can barely speak French anymore. And I'm not like horrible, but that is something that happens. And these people, they want to retain their cultures, I'm assuming, just like anybody else wants to retain their culture. So separatism is going to be inevitable. In my estimation, I think it shouldn't be. That's what we want, really. You know what? Like, what is Canada going to be more powerful because we're bigger? Because we have no, probably not. There are plenty of countries that survive just fine without a military. There's like Costa Rica. There's all these countries that don't have like these massive military things protecting them or whatever. Like, we could have our own small militaries, whatnot. But like, the thing is we're always going to have that problem of somebody in Ottawa not knowing what's best in Manitoba, Saskatchewan, Alberta, the Northwestern Territories, the East, West, whatnot. Like, we're always going to have that problem until we try to just decentralize the government and make it as small and local as possible. And if we're going to make it as local as possible, then we don't really want, then what authority is this state of government of Canada? What are they really, what authority, what type of authority should we give them? Would it just be for protecting the border? But then, whenever you start off with a small government, it always grows bigger, right? So then you think, okay, well, just have a small government for the border and this, and then like, okay. And then it gets bigger, and like, well, okay, we need pensions for these people that work here, and then it gets a little bit bigger, and they're like, okay, we need this. And like, I think it's almost just inevitable that we will separate because there's so many differences, because we're becoming demographically different. Richmond and some of these places are almost entirely Chinese, and they have different cultures. They want to live differently. They want to do things slightly differently or very differently. And it would, all that really matters in a country and things like this is numbers. People can write on a piece of paper what the Constitution means and Charter of Rights and all this shit. But what really matters is just what the majority of people think or consent to or want. And that is what is probably going to happen. So there's a significant number of people of a certain group or race or way of ideology that wants to separate. That's what will probably happen. And the only way that you're going to stop it is through forcing them to stay at the end of a gunpoint. But if hundreds of millions or millions of people want to do that at once, good luck stopping that. Good luck doing anything about it. It's just going to happen. And I think that would be better. I don't think it's going to be a bad thing. I want a smaller government. I want less centrality. I want less, we like the idea of Canada. We love love Canada. We all love Canada. I love Canada. I don't want anything to happen to Canada. But, you know, would that be best? Can we do it? Can we have a Canada that is always working in every province's best interest at once? Is it possible?
It sounds nice. It sounds ideal, and it's what I want, right? But like you said, it's kind of like, you know, some marriages, regardless of the kids, they just don't work out, and you can't necessarily always stay together if you hate each other, right? So it's one of those things where I think there's a lot of openness to try to work things out citizens-wise, but until there's actually policy in place that actually, and then some attitude change too, because it has been trickling down and affecting the way people see each other. And now there is, like you said, there's division and there's angst between provinces and between citizens, whether it's about handgun bans or immigration or any of these big issues. Everyone's just mad at each other. And it's just because we have different perspectives. And instead of just saying, you know what, maybe we should just accept that we're different and live peacefully beside each other, then they're trying to make us into Easterners and we're trying to make them into Westerners, or whatever way you want to look at it. It's not that simple, but I don't know. It's not, I don't think it's doable. By the way, I'm just going to mention, I probably should go in a few minutes here. So I thought I'd throw that out there in case anybody had like questions or whatever, and just to keep you in the loop. I didn't realize it was like 10 o'clock already. So time she flies, man. Time she flies.
Okay, guys. Yeah, if you got a question, let us know and we'll try to answer it for you right away.
I've kind of been trying to keep up with the chat, but it's like
it's difficult to be engaged and also, you know, read the chat and you know, kind of like, you know, like it's tough to like listen and
lights and screens and it's a lot.
But yeah, you know, and I think that, you know, generally I don't know when it will happen. I don't know if it's going to be soon or like I'm not saying like Canada will separate next year or something, but I think like just eventually it's going to happen. Like it just seems like a natural progression.
It does seem that going that way. And in Alberta too, the sentiment has, like, it was strong for a while, years and years ago, and it seems like there's been a resurgence of that. So I mean, it wouldn't surprise me, because if Alberta goes, then there's a very good chance Sask would go with them. I don't know what would happen to BC. BC Barbie just mentioned the other day how it's frustrating that, and I didn't mention BC in a video, that I mentioned something about the West and I didn't use BC, and it's because I think people just assume BC is like Vancouver. What people don't realize is a lot of BC is actually quite conservative. When you look at like northern BC and even down in parts of the Kootenays, Prince George, forestry areas, it's not at all like the coast. So like sometimes I wonder if it would be like the coast would become part of, like, I know they've talked about that in the past. Is it Pacifica? I don't remember what they want to call it. Like it'd be like California, Oregon, Washington, you know, Vancouver and the island, and then essentially the rest of BC break. And I don't know what would happen. Like, I don't know how that would work. There's so many logistics. It's not ideal, but like you said, it's not ideal the way it is either. And I don't know, like Adam Daniel Mazet made it sound like, he said, he had a good example. It was almost like Alberta's like the beautiful, wonderful bride that's just trying to get the guy's attention, and he's just too busy looking at the sports screen and doesn't, you know, he takes her for granted and neglects her, and he doesn't, you know, he uses her and abuses her and then expects her to stay forever, and eventually she leaves, right? And he's surprised when that happens. It's sort of like Alberta is just neglected and nobody appreciates what they've done for this country. So I could see it starting and it would all be Alberta, and then we would all probably join them. So I don't know. I'm not a separatist, but I'm not an anti-separatist. I guess I'm waiting it out, but I'm like you. I'm not super hopeful that it's going to go well either.
Right. And, you know, it's just I think it's just kind of like a matter of time. But like, I agree. Like, I think it's just one day there's going to be an issue that's just people are not going to be able to agree with. We're becoming so polarized now that people are like, even that abortion thing in like in America and that, like, such a late term thing. Like, some of these issues are getting progressively to the point that people are going to be like, no, I'm just done with these people. I'm not interacting with them. I don't want to share a country with them. I want my own country, you know. And I think that's progressively with the polarization, how people are getting more and more extreme, especially the left. That's really who's getting more extreme. And the more extreme they get with their positions, I think eventually people will be like, okay, we got to separate from you lunatics. But let's check out the chat here.
See a couple questions.
Yeah, AJ and Kelly, was Saul Alinsky a dirty commie, and should everyone go tell Freebird Media that he was?
Is he that guy that wrote like Rules for Radicals?
Yeah, I think so.
What does that do with Freebird Media?
I keep seeing Freebird Media. I saw that today too, and he's like
I know, does he been talking about Solinsky, or I don't know anything about it.
He said something about on his channel the other day, or I saw a video today. I remember I didn't even watch it, but it was something about like, is Saul Alinsky a commie or something? I think he was talking about the other day, and like, I guess the way he's reading it, he's not really a communist or something, and I don't even know. But...
Okay, so this person obviously thinks he was, and I assume he was everything. I don't know a lot about him, but I know that he seems to be one. Anyways, but yeah, seems to be, if nothing else, like a little activist, you know.
But some people, you know, yeah, they reference his book to like try to use as tactics to fight the left, and there's some tactics in there that I'm like, that are good ideas, like make people live by their own standards. That's a good tactic, honestly, because the left cannot fucking live by their own standards.
Yeah,
very few people can, but they especially can't, because you see them, they have pictures of them in blackface coming out 20 years ago and all this shit. You find out all this crazy stuff. You're like, yeah, like they can't, and
there's way more dirt coming out. Oh, it's awful. Like the amount of bullshit ethics stuff that comes out of these people's mouths, and it's like, hey, they're pedophiles. Oh, cool. Well, that sounds about right. Next question that I just saw, I think I maybe missed this earlier. Is there coastal towns in BC still livable? It's a good question. I mean, it depends. If you're a leftist, they're all pretty livable. They're, you know, have running water and stuff. If you mean livable as in sanity wise, when it comes to being a conservative, I would say you could probably get away with anywhere north of Comox. If you go to like Campbell River and up to like some of the smaller northern communities, Campbell River would be the last major center. It's still like a logging community, so there's still a bit more just kind of average Canadian sort of folks hanging out, you know, forestry industries, that kind of thing. So I think maybe some coal, I'm not sure. Nanaimo's, I don't know, it depends. There's two things that happen on the coast. There's like super rich people and their money with their BMWs and their, you know, fancy cars and their double, you know, they have 2 or 3 houses and their beach house that sits there for the winter empty while they live in their other mansion. And there's all that. And then there's also like the people that run away from their problems and go live on the hippie island and, you know, act in whatever way that they act. So it's an interesting dynamic. I liked it in many ways. It was good when you have health conditions. It's nice and relaxed and slow paced. People are pretty friendly, but unless you tell them you're conservative. I never tried to do that, so I could be wrong. I don't know. I'd say, yeah, Northern Island, or you could go inland into like the Sunshine Coast, Powell River. What's the other place? I don't know if it's Prince Rupert. I can't remember. There's a bunch of cities up in there, or like Smithers area where BC Barbie is. That area is pretty conservative, and you're still fairly close to that kind of coastal atmosphere. So that's my best advice. So have fun researching.
So, like, let me check here. I think I saw one more. Alberta, Coke.
No, there's nothing wrong, Gator. There's nothing wrong with owning 3 houses. I just note that there's a lot of like money and like exorbitant waste that people sort of use, like on the island, where it's just money that like I can't fathom. But no, I'm still not. I don't believe that. What is it that AOC said? Billionaires shouldn't exist, and I do understand that in order. The irony of it is that socialism believes billionaires and rich people are bad, and yet it's the rich people that subsidize most of the programs in socialist countries. And so, yeah, you can't really knock them because they're paying such freaking high taxes. My 3-house bigot. I am not a 3-house bigot, no. Just an average gal that will never have 3 houses.
Yeah, you know, and that's why AOC is really scary, because she's one of those people that actually believes all that shit. Like a lot of other people, like socialist, like type, like they don't believe any of that. You know, the politicians, but the new up and coming people like her, like I think she actually legitimately thinks these things and thinks that they're like good ideas. And if you just think for a second, stop and just use your brain for a minute, like, yes, I'm against crony capitalism too, but that's all they ever fucking point to. And it's like, you know, that's, yeah, people hiding their things in the Bahamas so they don't have to pay taxes is bad too. But like, yeah, they're like, okay, we don't want people to succeed, essentially, is what they're saying. You can't succeed too well.
Yeah, there's
Only
a
this
we get to
well,
decide.
not
We
this
get to
well.
decide. There's this level, and then that yacht level is too high, so it's not okay. And it's like it doesn't mean I don't like rich snobs. I have no beef with rich people. Money is money. I
Right.
don't love snobby, arrogant assholes in general, but
Right.
there's arrogant assholes that are poor too. So I mean that doesn't
Yeah.
really matter. I noticed that, like you were saying, it's just resentment. Resentment runs this activist shit. It's like people that are just so angry and resentful of people that are doing well, and
Yeah.
I find that really kind of despicable because resentment isn't particularly the best emotion to rule your actions. Things might go bad.
We lack philosophy, I think, right? And philosophical thinking and teaching and stuff, because a lot of people's like resentment, like why are you resentful? That's just these things, if you think about them and you think about why you have these thoughts and like what do they do for you, and that, and you really come to the conclusion, like me being resentful, me coveting my neighbor's wife and what they have and whatnot is never going to make me happy. It's never going to do anything for me. It's just going to make me more angry. But a lot of people, they work on such base emotions and just emotions, and we don't teach philosophy anymore. We don't teach ways to think, ways to be happy. And that's one of the problems. I think we don't, people want to be happy. I think that is something that a lot of people have in common. Not everybody is good, but most people want to be happy at the very least, right? And how do you do that? And we're convinced by leftists that you do that through materialism, through stuff like that, because they're like, well, the rich people have all the money and you're poor, so you're destitute and they have everything, and that's why their lives are so great. But you see rich people killing themselves all the time too, and whatnot. So it's not like money brings you happiness. It's learning how to be content with your life and what you have, and to see what the good in what you have, and like understanding what is really valuable in life, what brings you happiness, as opposed to just thinking it's going to be material objects and goods, and coveting other people, because at the end of the day it's just going to make you a bitter, depressed, angry person, right? And nobody wants to be around. That's how a lot of these old feminist, like fucking socialist women become, right? After time, these cat ladies. I like the definition of them.
That's so true. And it's not pretty. Cats are fun, but having 13 of them and being angry and resentful is not particularly fun. Yeah, no, I agree with you. There's that resentment. It's not helpful. And even just like where I'm at, there's a level where you have to have a certain amount of money just to survive, and then you can be pretty unhappy if you don't have enough to do very basic things. It can be very stressful. It takes its toll. But then pretty much beyond that, like when your basic needs are met, it is true. You can find, that's one good thing about going through the stuff I went through. It made me really grateful for, I'm a farm kid, so I'm pretty okay with a simple life. I won't say simpleton. My very first date with Steve, I called myself a simpleton, like a dumbass, because I was nervous. Instead of saying I like simple things, I said I was a simpleton, which was, of course, so funny. We laugh about that heartily even now, but I do enjoy a simple life. Simpleton, right? I'm like, no, I'm really not.
That's pretty good. I'm a simpleton.
Yeah, right. Like, I don't even know.
Really good.
But yeah, either way, I mean, you can live a simple life, and I'm content with that.
Yes.
It's I feel like that gratitude part really came to me, when you go through, when you realize how little some people do have, or in parts of the world. Like, that's why I'm so sick of, like you said, feminists. That's a whole other story. But yeah, feminists bitching about stuff like, you're okay. We're in Canada. You're all right. You're doing all right.
Exactly.
You can just shut. You just be thankful that you have. That's a whole other story. One day I'll do a video about gratitude versus like privilege, right? Because people mix up the idea of, what having something automatically means then you're a shitty person. Well, that's ridiculous. That's, like I said, rich people are fine. I got no beef with it. Just don't be an asshole is about all don't be an asshole, and don't use slave labor to get it, I guess. Put it that way.
Yeah, it's just, I think once people contend with biology and understand there will always be differences in people, and that's okay. And it's okay to have less and to learn how to be content with less, because that will always be the case. So it's good to people learn philosophy so they can be happy doing a certain job that maybe it's not like you're not a physicist or something or whatever, but that doesn't mean you can't be happy. You can't live a full life. But you know, they convince us we need all these big things, and we get depressed, and we need pills, and then we get sick. And but you know, I don't want to keep you too much longer here. I know I could go
on. Get me on that topic, and that'll be get me on the how many antidepressants they pump out topic, and we might never get off this
right. Exactly. I don't want to start talking
that'll be
about
the next one. That'll be the rain check.
Yeah, pharmacare and all that other stuff. You know, we'll be there for a good little while. But thank you for joining me, Kelly. We should do this again on, you know, your channel or something.
Sure, we'll switch it up once in a while. Just I'm enjoying just these kind of casual hangouts. It's a good time. Thanks everyone in the chat for the lovely discussion. I'll just plug my video on Friday. I'm doing a live stream Friday. It's not going to be nearly as chipper or fun. It's a super serious conversation about abortion. I have put a link up on my channel for, I think it's at 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time on Friday. If you guys want to join, feel free. Or if you know anyone that is interested in this topic, it's going to be super open, super probably uncomfortable, but I think it's a good discussion to have. I saw that coming up in the chat about like the late-term abortion things in the States, and it's a pretty sickening topic, and so I'll be getting into all of that from a super personal angle. So if anybody wants to join on Friday night, feel free. If not, and it's not your cup of tea, that's cool too. But thank you for the conversation, AJ. It's been great.
Not a problem. I had a great time.
Yeah, ditto.
You guys take it easy. Have a good night, everyone.
You too.
Peace.